generally, you said feminism is neutral.
Here's what actually happened.
The foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
To lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong.
Yeah,
you're promoting, right?
Ideology is the main thing of politics, right? This is my ideology.
So 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, they dead? With a crowbar, you say?
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sara, the Raging Tomato, bringing to you live another 1v1 debate on this Friday evening. I have with me Mark Reid and JimBob, made by JimBob, both here to answer the question, is evolution true? Please be sure while you're watching to hit the like, subscribe, and share this shit to everyone. Thank you. Mark Reid, would you like to begin with your opening statement, please?
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second. I don't seem to have something seems to be going wrong my end. Sorry, technical issues. Just give me one sec
okay.
and I will grab it. It does. It's terrible. Just give me one sec.
That's okay. Take your time. While you're doing that, I'll let everyone know, if you haven't already purchased your ticket to DebateCon, we will all be there. Well, I don't know if Mark's going, but JimBob, I think, might be.
No.
Either way, be sure to grab your tickets now. We'll be in Nashville November 15th and 16th to bring to you in-person live debates. How we doing, Mark?
Just 1 second. Where's my window capture? And it's all gone downhill. It's all gone downhill. It's all terrible.
It's our big welcome back. You know what? It wouldn't be a welcome back stream if it weren't
right.
difficulties. I'm all for it.
I'll just redo this so I can get a Chrome window under browser is probably a good idea. No, that's not what I want. God damn. I do apologize. This is just technical issues my side. Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it is. Exactly right. Why isn't that coming up? Because
JimBob has bad jokes for us.
Terrible jokes. Terrible jokes.
Dad jokes? I don't have any dad jokes.
I like dad jokes.
Yeah, it would have to be browser. Add, yes, and hang on 1 sec. My apologies. This was working like I tested this morning and it was working, and then now it's not, which is just so frustrating.
Don't worry about it. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll also take this time to remind you, I have been working hard behind the scenes while I took a whole week off. Ooh, a whole week. But I've been working very hard for a lot of updates to the show and a catalog of debaters for all of you. It's wonderful. It's exciting. And hopefully this will help network out even more so all of the debaters that come to this show, the panel, and all of the fun things put in one space for you to find. It's exciting.
Sara, I'm going to piss really quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. Come on, work. What is going on? Okay, I am absolutely struggling with my system here.
That's
I
okay.
can't
Take your time,
seem
Mark.
to get the display to work. What is going on? Um, um, um,
You take care of that. I
display,
will read out some of these super chats already while they are coming in. Nico Pluto over on Jim Bob's side says, "Seep the leg, Mr. Jim Bob, no mercy." Steve White enjoying his new Jim Bob membership. Congratulations. Christopher Scott sending $5 just to say hello, everybody. Hello to you, all of you Jim Bobs over there. Stephen White also gifting 5 Jim Bob memberships. Congratulations to all of you lucky lottery winners. Jay the One says, I'd rather give Sarah money instead of the single mother with C-section scar at the titty bar. Well, that's quite hateful. I mean, we love everyone all around, and you just gave your money to a single mother. How do you feel about that? Jess Gerald gifting out 10 Raging Tomato memberships. Crystals in the chat for Jess Gerald, please, all around. Paul Long Nate already starting us off with a big 50, says, going to bed, we'll watch the replay in the morning. Enjoy, like the damn stream, and make the goals. Team Jim Bob for the win. Shout out to you, Paul Long Nate. I hope you enjoy your rest.
Okay.
I'm sure you'll be on the road soon. All set?
Yeah, just had to mix and match and dash and duck. Yeah, but we're okay now. Just checking everything. Wow, that is
It's
rough
okay.
on
It
my end.
happens. It happens.
Ah, the frustrating thing is it was just working, and that's the frustrating thing. Now I'm just going to grab this.
Welcome.
Ah, yeah,
to my
it's just another day on Rotten Tomatoes, just Raging Tomatoes. Sorry, just another day. Just
Starts with a freaking insult. All right, Mark, go ahead and kick us off with your opening statement, please.
Okay, can I just share my screen? That would be
yeah,
great.
sure.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So I usually do presentations, so I'm going to share my screen. Wow. Window, slideshow. That should be good there, I guess. Is that coming up, or am I completely
we're all
and
set.
completely and utterly boned? Okay, hello everybody. Good to see you. I want to thank Raging Tomato for having this and Jim Bob for being my opponent today. Today we're debating, is evolution true? And apparently I'm going to be discussing genetics with a lumberjack, apparently. So this is going to be fun. This is absolutely going to be fun. So first off, I want to talk about why absolutely we know evolution is true. And I'm going to be quick, but I'm going to try and get as much information as possible. So basically, before we even knew about DNA, before we even knew about genetics, we basically knew that there was a nested hierarchy to evolution, that everything fell within this hierarchy that goes down, that's nested within one another. So as you go down, you have prokaryotes, you have chordata, you have mammalia, you have animalia. Animalia is the kingdom, but as you go down, so what we found is that retroviruses fit exactly into this. I'm just trying to do my slides. Whoops, that is not what I meant to do. Give me one sec. Why are you not working? Okay, this is a struggle. Holy crap. Okay, so the retrovirus insertion program, this is viruses like HIV. Basically, we know that viruses have a distinctive pattern here. They have a distinctive structure, which is the LTR on either end, GAG, POL, and ENV in between. Now, it's important to notice those LTRs are caused by a protein called integrase, which makes these cuts and duplicates the sides of the insertion point. Now, that insertion point can be anywhere over thousands of insertion points on the cell. Now, these structures are in every single cell of your body and comprises about 8% of your DNA, 8 to 9%. Now, we share with other organisms these exact structures. Now, the only way they can get into every cell in your body is to be in the germline, the egg or the sperm. Now, basically what happens is that these retroviruses, they're passed horizontally and appear in random sections of the genome. But when they appear in every single one, we know that they have inserted into the germline and then been passed down through generations. So we know these viruses are there. In fact, we brought one back to life by changing its DNA slightly. We know that they've been passed down through generations, and we know that when something shares those retroviruses, they have been passed through generations from one member down to another. So that's how we know when things are related in their ancestry. So this is basically the way that it works. What you'll notice here is that you've got the normal gene here. When something splits off, as I said, that the retrovirus makes a cut, replicates both ends of it, which is the LTR or long terminal repeat, and that it inserts itself within that genome, right? So you can see in this one, it's got that virus DNA inserted in the middle of the sequence. So you'll have a sequence in one organism, right? And then in the middle of that sequence, a virus will be inserted. So what we know is that that virus was integrated after those two split off, because if it wasn't, it would appear in species C over here. So we know that where that virus was inserted because of where it is located. Now, the chances of that happening by chance, the same virus in the same locations across thousands of insertion sites, are more than trillions to one. Okay, it's more for one virus to do that. It is almost impossible. Now, and that brings us to the question of comparative studies between these species. So we know that these viruses were inserted. We know they were inserted before they branched off. And we know if they share a retrovirus, they have a common ancestry. We know that for certain. So for instance, we will have it inserted in between species C and O. It means that those two, it had to be there because O doesn't have it. But the viral evolution, the species A, B, and C has it. But if A and B only has it, we know that split off as species C split off. And we do this for all kinds of things, not only the rabbits before, but all kinds of organisms. Now, this is the phylogenetic tree of retroviruses, because interestingly enough, retroviruses fall into their own cladistic tree, their own tree of life. And we can, and I know this is complicated, right? Like this is very, very complicated biology. And I'm not a geneticist, but they do understand this. What they do is they simplify it down from something like this, right, where you have humans. This is the HERVs, human endogenous retroviruses. They will simplify something like this down into something like this, right? This is just a simplistic view. So because these retroviruses, we have ERV1, 3, 4, and 5, we know that virus must have inserted itself into the germline, the egg or the sperm, before monkeys split off. Like so over hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was inserted. And we know that for a fact. In endogenous retrovirus 3, monkeys don't have it, but gibbons, great apes, and humans do. We know that it must have inserted itself after the monkeys split off, and so on and so forth. Now, there are retroviruses that are just humans have. No other organism has them. And we know those are new because A, they're not fragmented, they're not degraded, they're relatively structured well, so less mutations have occurred to them. And number two, because it has been inserted and no other organism has it, it has to have been done after we split off, because we see this commonality. Now, our closest ancestor is the chimpanzee, and I will get to that. We share 208 full viruses with the chimpanzee, right? 208. Now, the chances of one being inserted, the same virus in the same insertion spot in an organism, is trillions to one. 208 is literally impossible. But the interesting thing is that we have highly degraded viruses that we share with fish. And it will be on my opponent to explain how they got there, because HERVS and HERVL are shared with fish and rodents. They're absolutely shared with fish and rodents. So we know that they were inserted ages ago, billions of years ago, when we had a common ancestor. And this is how we know for a fact that evolution is true. This is the smoking bullet. This is why Dr. Francis Collins, who is a Christian and head of the Human Genome Project, says that the DNA evidence alone will prove evolution. You don't need anything else. It is the fingerprints of where we came from. Now, and don't forget, this was all before we knew about genes. Someone came up with this theory and everything fits it perfectly. That nested hierarchy fits it perfectly. Now, the other thing I want to go through quickly is the chromosome 2 fusion. So this is the chromosomes of humans and chimpanzees, right? Humans, chimpanzees, they're 99.1% identical. Just in sections that code for genes, like presentation, it's about 98.8, depending on how you measure them. So chromosome 2A and 2B in chimpanzees is almost identical to chromosome 2 in humans, right? And like what we would expect and what they postulated in their experiments was that if there was a fusion, usually on the ends of DNA, you have something called telomeres. In the middle, you have a centromere. If it did fuse, what you should see is telomeres in the middle and a cryptic centromere, an extra centromere that's degraded. And that's exactly what we found. And that is the actual image of chromosome 2 in both humans and chimpanzees. And yes, that is what it looks like. Actually, that's a number of great apes. That's humans, chimpanzees, I believe gorillas and orangutans. So like we see that what we expected is what was predicted is absolutely true. And we know that there was a fusion event because of the highly concentrated amount of telomeric repeats in the middle where it shouldn't be. So as Dr. Francis Collins says, we don't need any other information except for genetic information to prove that evolution is true. And regardless of what you think, we absolutely have found it. But I want to thank you, and I'll hand any rest of my time in. I hope that was quick enough. I went through that fast.
That was perfectly timed. Thank you. Jim Bob, I'll hand it over to you for your opening statement, please.
A clarification, we're going to have time to cross-examine the openers or...
The opener. So after you do your opening, then he'll have 5 minutes to come back at you, and you'll have 5 to go back to him.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, cool. All right, cool. So what is evolution? Evolution is said to be the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms during the history of the Earth. We are not just speaking about adaptation. We are speaking of macro claims that species we see today come from an entirely different type of animal. As Mark said in his opening, there's a branching off, a departing from a central core of an animal, and then you have a different animal, and then eventually you have many different animals, all from this branch he's speaking of. The claim is that the natural phenomenon of diversity today is produced by an evolutionary mechanism. Now, notice in Mark's opening, he actually just cited things that are similar, and then he presupposed ancestry, all right? That's the thing in question. And then he said, we know that it's impossible for this to exist if evolution, it wasn't true. It's impossible, right? Well, that's just a claim. He didn't actually justify that claim. He just asserted it and said, we know over and over again, as you guys noticed. The problem with that position is that if you determine that evolution is true merely by similarity, and you start with the presupposition that everything's similar, then you couldn't actually falsify this claim because everything is similar. Life is made of similar components. There is anatomical similarities between things that don't have any genetic similarities at some level. So the genetic similarity at some level in Mark's assessment is completely arbitrary, where he says things are related. But he would actually probably bite the bullet and say, well, we are related to a banana merely because we share similarity in some way. Well, similarity does not entail that we come from something. That all you're really stating is an observation. You're jumping to the conclusion that similarity means that we come from something. Now, he also stated in his opener that with these viruses, right? Now, we'll get more time, but because I have 8 minutes to do it now, I should probably do it. He says there must be the only way for these retroviruses to be similar in a similar place is if they're passed down. Therefore, we come from these other previous animals category of animals that have a similar thing in a similar place. Well, that's not good reasoning. There's a lot of things that have similar things in similar places. Now, he's saying it's impossible, the likelihood. Well, he doesn't even have access to likelihood. Likelihood requires that you have access to favorable outcomes and unfavorable outcomes, and you do some math. He didn't provide any math. He just merely stated it's unlikely. The problem, though, with this view, this virus view, is that he said that the only way one animal, in this case human, could actually share that genetic detail with another animal is if we came from that animal. But the problem with this view is there had to have been a time absent generational reproduction where it's passed on. There had to be a time where it actually showed up in the body itself, not generational. So you notice how he says it's totally unlikely, and yet for a retrovirus to have its first moment inside of a body, in order so it can be passed down, there has to be a first moment it happened. So he already debunked himself, because if the statement, the only way for a virus to find itself into an organism is through generations and sex, right? Passed down, but like a trait, is if it's passed down that way. But the problem is there needs to be a first moment where this body has this thing that isn't generational. There has to be a first moment. So the first moment actually goes against his entire argument of chance. Now, he'll just say a random mutation. Well, I'm sorry. If a random mutation against all odds produces something, well, then a random mutation against all odds can produce a bunch of things. For instance, a functioning specialized liver, Mark. You know, he just says evolution is true, but the statement evolution is true isn't just about your analysis and your interpretation of similarities at the genetic level between two things. Your claim for evolution is that a process, a mechanism you're going to have to point to and argue for tonight, the process of evolution, random mutation, sexual selection, whatever you like to point to as a mechanism, you're going to have to tell me how it developed things like livers that do very specialized things inside of a body of other specialized things. All evolution proponents start with the granted populations and diversity that exist. They don't tell you how it is we got populations. They just merely say we got them. If we're going to say the diversity and the phenomenon we see in the world today in nature is produced by evolution, Mark would say yes. Well, populations is one of those phenomena. So something Mark or any other evolution proponent cannot do is tell me how a simple thing like a liver or a simple thing like a population of giraffes was produced by the mechanism he's arguing for evolution. The only thing they can do is say, that's similar, that's similar. Therefore, I grant myself a nebulous process. I can't tell you how it works or explain it at all. It's just random. And the irony here is that he comes out swinging with the chance argument when the entirety of evolution and all of the things that need to happen are mathematically as impossible as he's claiming the retrovirus position is tonight. So the problem with evolution is much more deeper as well. One other problem is it's often cited as a scientific theory. It doesn't even pass the science. It can't even be brought through the scientific method. Not one evolution proponent has come up against me and actually simply put evolution through the scientific method, one of the simplest arbiters for what a scientific theory is and what a scientific theory isn't, right? They can't do it. None of them can do it. Mark can't do it. Peterson can't do it. The rest of them can't do it. So as far as hypothesis is concerned, they don't even have a viable hypothesis to test anything. All it is post-diction rationalization about a story that they presuppose, and then they try to find little instances where what they would call the evidence fits the story. Now, even if evidence fits the story, it doesn't follow that evolution is true. In fact, Mark, if you hold evolution as a valid serious scientific theory, you could never say it's true, because scientific theories are not based on truth or fact. They're based on likelihood. They're inductive. You can't say the scientific theory X is true. That's a truth statement. Science doesn't work like that. Science doesn't produce absolute truth claims. It produces likelihood claims. The problem with likelihood is that Mark has no way of falsifying any of his claims tonight. He just has to say, we know. That's it. That's all you're going to hear today. We know. Count it. Count how many times he says, we know. I dare you. I bet you it's upward to 200 tonight, in just 2 hours. He's also presupposing that we split off. Well, that's the thing that needs to be determined. You can't just look at anatomy and say, things are similar, therefore we came from that thing. You can't say that. You need to tell us how you know it split off, not that it split off, right? Similarities between things doesn't tell you what thing comes before another. It doesn't tell you the process. You're just presupposing it. And then you're going back into history and you're going, well, if my presupposition is true, my interpretation of the data, it'll match. I'm going to match my presuppositions with the data, right? But you have no mechanism. That's the problem with evolution. You have zero mechanism. It's a giant storytelling device, right? It tells you the chapters of the book, but when we ask granular questions about how it happens, they skip chapters. They just keep skipping the chapters. It happens every single time with evolution. Shared virus, he says, or characteristics equals, he says, shared ancestry, right? He says it must have occurred that way. Well, you have to prove that. You can't just say it must have. You don't even have all of the available data or circumstances. Like I said in the beginning, when he talks about retroviruses, which many of these people think is the smoking gun, as he said, smoking bullet, smoking gun, they think that it's impossible for some instance, a genetic instance, to happen similar between two things without one coming from the other. I will reiterate, it has to be the case that the retrovirus had to emerge in a single body or a population without reproduction. It has to start that way. Otherwise, it's endless regress. You know what you're going to have to do? You have to keep assuming that the retrovirus existed in the thing before a chimp, and then the thing before that thing, and then the thing before that thing. And by the way, they never can tell you what comes before this. They always keep you locked in with humans look similar to apes and chimps. Look at it. We must have come from each other. And we go, well, aren't you assuming that there's something before that that's completely dissimilar? Isn't there something in the ancient past that you're going to argue we came from, but you can't use anatomical similarities to say? Yeah, of course. You're going to have to say that. Well, the retrovirus instance is just the only thing they really have left in their so-called theory, right? They have nothing else, right? They just have to say retrovirus similar, therefore George Floyd is an ape, right? Well, I'm not saying that. You are. With that, I don't think his own methodology, like there's no falsification for anything he's saying, right? Especially if we get into the granular level. I challenge any evolution proponent, any of you guys. I don't care. I don't care if you're so much bigger than me and you have a bigger accounts. You can't tell me mechanically how random mutation produces a highly specialized mechanism like a liver or a heart or the superhighways of blood or anything else, and how they operate together seamlessly, working together, but accidentally. The evolutionary view philosophically is bankrupt because it holds this position that highly specialized function with dedicated purpose in reality is produced by random mathematical impossibilities. That's insane. And so is evolution.
Thank you, Jim Bob. We're going to go ahead and kick into our 5-minute rebuttals. Mark, you can begin now.
Okay, so all I heard was a lot of nah from Jim Bob, nothing of substance, just nah is all he said. So he said that evolution is processing different types of organisms. No, it's not. It's change of allele frequency over time or change of heritable characteristics over time. That's all it is. That is its definition. Evolution macro, micro claims. That's something that the creationists jump on. There is no difference in the actual system over anything. It's like saying, well, if you can measure an inch, but you can't measure a yard. No, it doesn't work like that. It's exactly the same process. So Jim Bob's just wrong on that one. I didn't even mention similarity, especially like physical similarity. I didn't mention it at all, so I don't know what Jim Bob's arguing against himself, apparently. So I didn't even mention that. So, you know, that's weird. Like when we say related to a banana, what we mean is we had a long ancestor, but they conflate and try and make it related like it's your cousin. No, it's not. It's so far removed to be billions of years. So, you know, this is just a conflation by Jim Bob. You know, the likelihood, we don't have any other likelihood on favorable outcomes. Yes, we do, Jim Bob. It's called somatic infection. Basically, when the virus jumps from person to person, it's a somatic infection. We have tons of instances where the viruses jump from person to person and does not reach the same insertion point in that DNA. So, yeah, we have billions, trillions, quadrillions of instances of people getting infected by viruses and ending up in different insertion points in their cell. The fact that you don't understand it doesn't make it not true. so that's the favorable outcomes that we do have. It like had to be a time where it stood up in the body. A first moment it happened, yeah, they get infected. Like you can give a flu to somebody else. Viruses travel horizontally, right? So they travel up and down, but they also travel vertically, which is somatic infection. The thing about that is when you catch a virus from somebody and it's from somebody else and not in the germ line, which if you were actually paying attention, you would have heard me said multiple times, it will be in different parts of the cell, right? This is what you've got to understand. Well, I'm not sure you got to understand. I'm trying to teach you genetics very quickly, but we're talking about it being in the same place in every cell of your body. So that entire point is moot. It doesn't mean anything. You're just saying, nah. So random mutation, mutation's random, and natural selection, the process that actually governs it, is deterministic. It's not random at all. So when you say random chance, no, evolution isn't random chance. The mutations and the viral elements are random, but it actually is selected for. So it isn't chance. So you're just sort of, muddying the waters there. Sort of similarity, you can't explain how it works. I just explained to you how it works, how we determine that to be true. And yes, science does deal with what is true. This isn't a philosophical debate, but JimBob, it's not like we don't go, well, it is true that the sun is a fusion event of hydrogen to helium. We don't say, oh, well, no, we don't know it's true because it's just science. And then I love how you smug in absolutely true in there, like it has to be some sort of philosophical, absolutely no chance of it being false. So watch for the smuggle of absolutely true in there when he says, well, it's not enough for it to be true. It's got to be absolutely true, doesn't it, JimBob? Yeah, give me a break. Like, as I said, chance, it's not chance, it is deterministics. The likelihood, so this was just a sort of a dodge on your part. Yeah, the absolutely thing was just a dodge. You know that it is like truth is truth. And we do make true statement in science. That's what we say. It is true that this occurs, but you want to go for absolute. Presupposition, absolutely it's not. No, we observe what is around us. That's not a presupposition. We don't presuppose this. They didn't presuppose it when they first came out with the hypothesis. It's just unfortunate for you that every single piece of evidence has backed up evolution again and again and again. And it's not some kind of presupposition. We don't go, hey, we got to find that it's true. In fact, people have tried very hard to disprove it and have never managed to do so. So the idea that it's a presupposition is just projection on JimBob's, because he's just presupposing that it's not true, can't be true, doesn't listen to me when I explain how cells get infected by retroviruses, and it is random unless that infection is in the germline. Germline, JimBob, is the sperm or the egg, okay? I feel like you need a basic biology course right now because you don't understand what I said. So maybe you can actually address something that is the conversation instead of your own. So yeah, again, all I heard was nah. Can you actually present some evidence of why it's not true other than your argument from incredulity would be great.
Perfect. Thank you. And JimBob, I will kick it over to you for your 5 minutes.
Like I said, and like Mark just said again, he said the germline. He means it's passed down through sperm, through something between parents, right? Through sex, right? The problem is, which he skillfully avoided, by the way, is if that's the only way this thing could pass through, there has to be a moment where that wasn't the way for it to pass through. There had to be an origin moment. So if you're saying this can't be passed through unless this happens, and yet you also grant yourself a moment in time where it happened in another way, you're in a contradiction, Mark. That's a contradiction. So I pointed out a contradiction in your view, Mark. You didn't point out any contradictions in my addressing of your claims at all, actually. So the similarities between things, notice how he just reasserted what is true. He just said science is true. I'm sorry, Mark, but you clearly don't understand the difference between a scientific theory and a description of, let's say, the sun. Describing what a tree is or what the sun is isn't actually a scientific theory. That's a description of reality to the best of our ability using the language and knowledge we have of that thing by observation. Scientific theory is talking about a phenomenon that you look at and what's causing it. In this case, the diversity of species, the populations you see in the world. Mark, you'd have to actually concede or at least accept that the populations from an evolutionary view, the populations we see in the world right now, the diversity of life in different species and groups, right, that are all different. You have to say that evolution, a mechanism, change in allele frequency, I don't care what you call the mechanism. You have to say that that's what produced the populations. The problem is you can't talk about evolution without starting with the populations, you see. This is the problem with evolution. We ask you, how does evolution, the mechanism, produce populations of unique, independent, universal kinds? And you say, it just happened. We say, how? Mechanistically, how does that happen using random mutation? Notice he said random mutation. Okay, a mutation happens, a copy of itself or not. It happens, right? And he's saying that that part's random, but what's not random is the environment's pressure on what the effect is, right? So his view is a random mutation occurs, maybe it produces some sort of trait, and either that trait is compatible with the environment or it's not, right? The animal doesn't even know what it's producing or whether it's going to be effective or not. But the environment is this thing that's deciding whether it is or not. The problem with that is that you still have to explain how random mutation mechanically produces traits that are advantageous to an environment. By the way, the environment it doesn't even help your argument. You know why? Because a random mutation producing something that's advantageous to the environment would take a lot of time. It would only work if the environment didn't change. It would be useless if the environment changed. What do we know about the environment? It changes, right? From your worldview and mine, it changes. So now you have to increase the unlikelihood by adding a variable called the external environment. We didn't even touch upon ecology. The fact that like he just grants himself populations who also eat other populations and plants and other things. And this just is produced from an accidental mutative process that the environment, which is made of animals also, determines, right? There's no evidence for any of that, dude. All he's saying is a story. He just says, this happened. And if you deny it, you're just saying, nuh-uh. Well, no, Mark, I'm actually pointing to something very granular here, and you dodged it both times. It's actually you saying, uh-huh. Everything else is a projection.
All set on your time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gentlemen, I shall leave the floor open to you. Enjoy.
Okay, so JimBob, do you understand how viruses usually are transmitted? How are they transmitted?
How are viruses transmitted? I mean,
Correct.
through mucus, types of mucus.
Right, so they're transmitted from person to person, right? So you're asking for a mechanism that before it was passed down through endogenization, which is the horizontal, the passing down from parent to child, which we have observed, right? That's observed science. Passing down of endogenous retroviruses that have written themselves in through the germline, right? You said, oh, there's got to be some mechanism for the first person to get it. Yeah, it was just transferred how viruses usually are transferred. What happens is that virus, if it infects a germline cell, right? Because the germline cell basically will replicate into 2, 4, 8, 16, etc., right? It will replicate that same genetic sequence throughout your body. Now, not the same thing happens if you get infected and it produces other viruses, because that's what viruses do. It will be in random parts in your body. So that's
what do you mean,
why.
Hold on a second. Hold on. How did you determine what a random part is? How did you determine randomness?
Okay, so it latches on to the nearest available insertion point, which is thousands of these protein receptors all over a cell. And these protein receptors will allow it to integrate into the DNA. Like, don't ask a question and then
how did you determine it's random?
From observation. Like I've said, we've observed this.
How? Well, how do you determine something's random, Mark?
Could you give me an example of a retrovirus?
Don't ask me a question. I ask you, how did you determine something's random, Mark?
I said we observed it, and can you give me
no, don't do this. Don't do this.
No. Can you give me an example of a retrovirus?
I'm going to go ahead and mark a total dodge here.
Any retrovirus at all?
A retrovirus.
Yes.
Name any you want. I don't care. You're not answering my question.
Okay. So HIV is a retrovirus.
Cool. How did you determine something's random? Not by looking at it.
Because we observe.
That doesn't tell me a methodology, Mark.
I think
that. So we observed it. How do you know what you observed is random, Mark?
Well, because we watch as the HIV and every other retrovirus we have ever seen basically attach itself to the nearest available receptor on the outside of the cell.
So it's not random. It's the nearest.
Sure.
So why'd you say random then?
Because it is, for all intents and purposes, random, because the receptor
it's random,
is
but
just
it's not
the
random?
orientation that cell has. Well, I mean, if you
Which is it, Mark? Which is it? Is it random or not random?
Hold on. At least let him
the receptor is the nearest, but what position over which position that cell is in is completely random.
How did you determine that?
Random.
How did you determine that?
Because they're at completely different orientations, and what we see, what we observe, is that when that HIV hits the cell, and all of the cells in somebody's body, because it infects every cell, or it tries to infect every cell in the body, depending on the immune system, it will basically be in different parts of the DNA sequence throughout the entire body. And that's what we observe. And you're trying to say, hey, you don't know it's random. It comes out random.
Sounds
that's
like you don't.
Exactly what it
Well,
does.
no, that's just restating the claim. It sounds like you said, we know it's random because there's different variations of how it latches, right?
Okay.
That's all you really said.
So what deterministic process does it use to go to the same point?
You're the one who's claiming evolution and the one who's supposed to know this.
You're saying it's not random. So what deterministic process does it use to go to the same point?
Mark,
I'm asking. It's a question.
I think he was asking. Hold on. Stop. I believe JimBob asked you, because you said it was random, and JimBob asked you what makes it random, or why, like, how do you...
It's not.
Yeah, so it's random because the cell will be in any orientation throughout the body, and that orientation determines which is the nearest protein structure that attached to. It does not order these in any way. The DNA is coiled inside, and there only are like a few thousand, depending on the cell, few thousand proteins, and depending on the virus, a few thousand proteins it can attach to. But it basically just selects one on an arbitrary nature. Just the first one it basically hooks onto. Now, there can be thousands of them. I don't know how we would not call that random.
Where have you ever observed something random, Mark, in nature?
All the time.
Not all the time. One instance where you observe something random in nature.
Flipping a coin.
That's not nature. The coins aren't natural.
Yeah, I'm not interested in your filibro kind of, well, it's not.
Dodge again, buddy. Dodge again, bro.
I'm really not interested in your filibro crap of, because it's not completely random. So it basically means that random, when I'm talking about in the sense of biology, means that there's no real reason why it selects one over the other.
How do you know that?
It is arbitrary. These
How do you
things
know that?
don't have minds. They just attach to the nearest
How
thing.
do you know
and
that?
What we find when we actually examine the infections are just a scattering of places. There's no sense to it. There's no procedure to it. We've studied this intensively, and JimBob wants to go, well, how do you know the cell isn't? Because we studied it intensively.
Because we studied it. We study it. You can't tell me how. You just studied. Okay. So notice that
you can't even name a retrovirus.
Can I? I don't need to. It's your positive claim.
No, you can't even. You don't even know.
It doesn't.
Gentlemen, we're not even an hour in. Calm it down.
Yeah.
He just said, right, if you don't understand, he was like, oh, in this opening and the follow-up, he said, JimBob just says, no, because he doesn't understand it. All I hear right now, given that Mark is a professional projector, is that he's saying, I don't really understand what randomness. I can't tell you how I determine something's random. It's just complicated, and we don't really know why or the reason, the rhyme or reason, therefore it's random. No, that's just being ambiguous. That's just being appealing to being naive, right? So he should say, to be consistent, we don't know yet. We don't know anything about this nature yet. We can't tell you. We can't study it deep enough to know in fact if something's random or not. But when you make the positive claim, Mark, that anything's random, including mutations, by the way, you use this term random, you can't even, you guys can use this on any one of these evolution proponents. They can't even tell you one instance of something being random. Guess what? A coin is determined by physics. It's determined, it's only two sides that could occur, right? And land on the hand. So it's not actually random. It's determined by physics, right? So you're just saying something that I'm not sure, I can't tell the future about is random. Well, no, that doesn't follow. The problem with this view is the entire assumption of evolution rests on this notion of randomness, and yet no evolution proponent can give me one instance in nature of randomness and how, not that it's random, how they know. Any justification for their epistemic claims, they go, stop philo-broing me. If I ask you, how do you know that? They say, stop philo-broing me. It's a total cope. It's a way of losing. You're already losing.
No, we observe the outcomes in cells, and we know that the germline infections are different because we've studied that as well. And that's what Jim Bob's desperately trying to avoid right now, that in somatic infections, it comes out in various different places. But I would like you to explain how the same virus got to the same position 208 times in every single cell in the entire human race and in the entire species of chimpanzees. How did that happen then?
I'm not the positive position here, Mark.
I don't care.
Stop interrupting. I let you talk. So the thing is, you are affirming something. I'm countering it. I don't have to produce an alternative explanation. Shh. I don't have to produce an alternative explanation for me to rip apart your stupid narrative about evolution. By the way, retroviruses, your narrative about retroviruses, nowhere in the similarities of the place of retroviruses tells you or explains how a liver gets produced from random mutation, how populations are produced from random mutation, and how the multiplicity of types of animals exist, right? Or the notion that one animal is somehow deep time. You just said a billion year old banana, right? You have to tell me how speciation works. Right? You just pointing to retroviruses is just pointing to similarities. You're just saying, oh, that's similar to that thing. Therefore, we come from other things. No, this is science, right? Science asks us explanations based on demonstration, based on experiment. How do you know, let's say something like speciation exists, that the notion that we as human beings have, from your view, a previous ancestor that's not identical to us, and those ancestors have a previous, and it keeps going. It's endless regress. The problem with evolution proponents and not enough counter evolution proponents check them on this is that they like to frame things only between chimps and. Is
this going to still keep going?
Hold on. Chimps and apes, or chimps and humans, right? This kind of category. You ask them to go back even a little bit further, they're just dead silent.
Okay, that's not true, because I went back in the viruses shared between fish and humans, which you haven't explained either, the exact same spot that it should be if that is true. Now, he's not listening because I basically said, and basically says, well, there is this inconvenient evidence that's been presented to me. It is that the only way that those viruses get there, and I must say, he's already acknowledged that they are retroviruses, which is great. That's fantastic. So how do they get in every cell in the body? We know that it was germline. We are aware of that because we have studied it in viruses. We've seen them be endogenized. We've seen this happen. Yes, we have studied it, seen it. And instead of actually looking at the science and going, oh, they've studied a lot of it, Jim Bob is basically going, nah, can't be true, random, philosophy, deterministic, I don't like it, I'm not going to answer it. No, this is absolutely evidence that and other organisms have a genetic heritage. It is exactly what they asked for. Yes, it is. And even other Christians do agree that is
fallacious.
Jim Bob
can't help himself.
Let him talk.
Thanks, Jim Bob. Other Christians already acknowledge this. The Vatican acknowledges it. Tons of other Christians acknowledge it because they know, they look at the evidence and they say, hey, yeah, that is. And the fact that Jim Bob is now dodging, saying, well, I can't explain how they got there. I don't have to. Really, Jim Bob, I've presented you with overwhelming evidence, not to mention chromosome 2 fusion, which is also really good evidence. And this came in after the theory of evolution was actually made. There was no presupposition or fitting it to this. It just fit within the theory of evolution. But what it doesn't fit within is Jim Bob saying, no, it doesn't happen, and I don't have to explain why, and I don't have a reason why. We can explain that the virus infected a germline. That germline was replicated to every cell in the body, which does not happen unless the germline is infected. That's what Jim Bob doesn't understand. The only way that can happen, that is the only way, and that has occurred, and the only way we get the same exact virus in the same exact spot as all these other organisms is if we shared a common ancestor. If there is another way, present it, get your Nobel Prize, be applauded for the science that you've done, but you're not doing that. You're basically just sitting there and going, nah, plugging your ears, not understanding what I'm saying, because the science and the experiments that we've done. Look, we even did an experiment, and he says, oh, we don't do experiments. Absolutely, we do. There's the Lenski labs doing experiments. We did an experiment with one of these viruses. We changed a slight bit of DNA and turned it back into a virus. It then started to infect other cells. And that I think it was HERVK, that is at the exact same spot in every single cell in a human's body. It is part of the very standard DNA of a human. So that is how we know that we had a common ancestor. Really? And instead of addressing it, you go, nah, it's a presupposition. It's something else. It's all this thing. No, you have to actually address how those got there. If you're saying they did not get there from having a common ancestor, how did they get there then?
Mark, how do you falsify your claim?
I asked you a question.
No, I don't need to provide an alternative to critique yours. You just claimed, hold on, stop. I just let you talk. You just claimed that the only way for X to occur is this. I'm asking you, if it's science, is that falsifiable?
Is that the question? Is science falsifiable? Yes.
No, I didn't say if science is falsifiable. I said the claim. You said the only way for a retrovirus to be in the position that it's in is X, for this to happen. Yep. Therefore, evolution. How is that falsifiable?
Oh, easily. For that to occur without endogenization and fixation. That's all.
What? No, that's just restating the claim. You have to tell me, how do you falsify? How do you falsify the claim that there's no other way? Because if there was another way that you didn't know of, right? How do you know of that doesn't exist? I'm just asking you. How do you know that?
Well, if you got a semantic infection, right? Someone infected you with a retrovirus and it managed to replicate into every single one of your cells at the same place, it would completely blow that out of the water. It would be defunct.
Okay, so someone gets a retrovirus from other means, right? Transmitted. And you're saying that through similar processes, but you're also saying through reproduction. Is that correct?
What do you mean?
Are you saying through generational reproduction as well?
No.
Are you saying
no?
Just
the viruses to get into cells, it's not just reproduction, Jim Bob. They will insert themselves into cells, right? Okay. So if I catch a HIV, for instance, that's a really common retrovirus.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't. I'm just saying it's a hypothesis.
Oh, my bad.
You're absolute fool.
I just
if you hear the if there, if I caught that, it would go into multiple cells in my body. If it was all in the same place in the genetic sequence, then it would be falsified.
Wait, so you're saying the only way for this particular virus to be in the same spot between two different types of animals, right? Categories of animals, is if the previous animal, the one you're presupposing we came from, delivered it, or we branched from that animal, right?
Not presupposing, no.
Okay.
But not the same spot.
Just try to answer what I'm asking.
No, because you're not listening, Jim Bob. Again, you have a learning disability or something. I don't know.
Okay. Well, instead of HIV.
So you're basically it has to be in the same spot in every cell in your body. Do you understand how mitosis works?
No.
Oh dear. Okay. So when a cell replicates,
how does this produce? Right? How does this? But the thing is, you're gonna swamp us in technicalities. But all I really need to know is,
how do you know?
Hold on. How do you know that an animal, a category of an animal that shares a similar similarity in the place of a retrovirus, how do you know that because of that space that it exists, that it follows that we come from that thing? How do you know that?
Because we share the exact same virus in the exact same analogous
How
place.
do you know that sharing the same virus in the same place means that you came from that?
Because the only way to get that virus to every single cell in the body is for it to be passed down vertically.
And how do you know that?
Because that is the only way
Restate the claim.
One cell.
No,
I'm not. Let's listen. That is the only way through mitosis you can get one cell to turn into 2, to turn into 4, to turn into 8, to turn into 16, and replicate that all throughout somebody's body, in every single cell in the body.
And so it sounds like in the audience, you can hear it, is that when I ask you, how do you know that? It's just a restatement of the thing he's claiming.
You made a claim that this could not happen. You made that claim that there are other ways. No, you said I was wrong.
Don't be a liar. Don't be a liar. Don't be greasy and liar.
You said that. Excuse me?
No, I didn't say that.
Excuse me. I mean, you are the oily one, Jim.
I didn't say anything. Are you making fun of Italians? That sounds racist,
okay.
Mark.
All right, gentlemen.
Oh, no.
That's all racist, Mark. Mark,
you look like you have a lot of olive oil.
Mark, are we all apes?
A bit greasy.
Mark, are we all apes?
Absolutely.
Is George Floyd an ape?
You didn't answer my question. You didn't answer my question.
Is George Floyd an ape?
Yes.
Say it.
All humans are apes.
Is George Floyd an ape?
We're all apes.
Is George Floyd an ape?
Yeah, Jim Bob, you didn't answer my question. Okay. If you're saying that there are, I was wrong that is the only way, what other possible way could there be for the genetic sequence of a retrovirus to get into every single cell in somebody's body? That is my question.
Mark, I didn't say it's not. I didn't make the positive claim. I said, how do you know it's the only way? And you know what you said, and everyone heard it. You know what you said? Because it's the only way. Wow, we're really doing great.
No. I said that's what we've observed, and I explained exactly how we observed it, because we have observed so many retrovirus insertions, because that's what scientists do. They study the viruses. Virologists have studied them, and they have never ever seen this happen with anything except in one instance, which keeps on happening time and time again, when a sperm or a ovum, an egg, is infected with that retrovirus. It is then fertilized, starts to divide, and the same virus will be in the same location in every single cell, because that is literally how biology works.
So you didn't observe another way it could happen?
You're saying it can happen another way.
I'm asking you a question, dude. You're not good at answering questions. Are you saying that it's the only way because you've never observed another way? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so you don't know it's the only way.
It's inference to the millions of times you've seen
Answer the question, Mark. So you don't know it's the only way, right?
No, we do know it's the only way. It's justified and also true.
You're in a contradiction. So let's move on to a more granular.
No, this is just this sort of philosophy.
No,
you don't absolutely know. So Jim Bob wants to insert an.
Reel it in.
Unbelievable.
Go ahead.
Well, what's telling is that he won't actually give any other way that can occur. He's just saying, well, you don't absolutely know. That's what he wants to insert here. You don't absolutely. And I would say, no, I don't absolutely know. But when we have trillions of times something has happened, or the millions of times we've observed it, and it occurs one way every single time, and it never occurs the other way, it's like saying, well, you don't know that if you drop something, it won't float up in the air. Yeah, we observe things drop through gravity. Like, we're aware of that. Like, you want this absolute knowledge to say, well, if you've never seen everything drop, so you can't possibly say that you know it will drop when you drop it. No, we know this. And it's the same level of confidence that we have that we know that things will drop when we drop it. It's because every single time we test to see whether it will go into every cell when there is a somatic or whether there is just a horizontal infection, it doesn't. Every single time that is in a sperm or an egg and it starts to divide, spreading it throughout the body, it does do that. Now, Jim Bob can play around with absolute truth all he wants, but he has to explain.
Never said the word.
If he says, well, you don't know that, you're just, there's other ways. No, then you have to explain how it happens apart from that way.
I already refuted you on this.
Then you've got nothing.
Shh. I don't need to present an alternative theory in order for you to affirm or me to refute yours or poke holes in yours. That's just a fallacious argument, right? So the problem with you, Mark, is I already produced a contradiction with you, right? So you just said, well, we know it's the only way. I said, how do you know it's the only way? You said, we know it from observation. I said, so you're saying you've never observed another way, right? And you said, yes. Does it follow that another way doesn't exist? Well, you admit no. And then I say, okay, is it the only way? And then you say yes. The problem is you're just assuming that you know something, and I'm the one who's actually the more skeptical one. I thought you were the skeptic here. So, would you argue, Mark, that random mutation from the evolutionary view produced a liver?
Okay, I am skeptical, but once we have a certain amount of sort of this occur all the time, then yeah, we know that it happens, and you're playing around with absolute knowledge. But I think at a certain point where we see it happen again and again, and you actually said, well, you don't know that's the only way. Well, you've got to produce some other way to show that I don't know that. You've got to basically say, hey, you don't have a justification for that. And it's sort of this idea that, oh, if I just say you don't know and then be extremely have this extreme skepticism, even though you don't know anything about the actual subject, because you don't even you haven't read about this at all, you still want to go, well, that's not the only way. How do you know that?
I didn't say it's not the only way. You keep lying about me. I never said it's not the only way. I asked you, how do you know it's the only way? That's on you, your positive claim. Now, does random mutation produce a liver?
So I just want to address that. It's because of the repeated, as I said, inference. We have seen it again and again. I am just as confident in that as I am that when I drop this pen, because I've seen it so many times, it's going to fall down.
That's really nice. So does random mutation produce a liver?
Yes.
It does. So can you tell me how it is that random mutation produces a functioning, highly specialized liver?
Yeah, well, it wasn't always highly specialized, and its function may have been different in the past. It was a filtration system that over many generations has got better and better and better at what it's doing. But that is a long and slow process.
How does random mutation produce a rudimentary proto-liver?
What do you mean? You don't think
look.
I just asked hey, I was answering. Chill,
You're not answering. You'll never answer.
Oh, the two of you, stop it.
Boy.
You can't answer.
Yeah, so basically, do you agree that a little bit of filtration of your bodily waste would be better than none?
Better isn't something that evolution cares about.
Really?
Yeah, there's no observer saying better or worse in under evolution. Do you think there's an observer?
Okay, Philosopher Bob. Okay, SpongeBob.
Is there an observer?
Look.
Wow, Mark. That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing.
Basically, when we say better, we're saying more beneficial to the survival of the organism. It's just Jim Bob's being...
That's amazing. So how did random mutation produce a proto-liver?
Yeah, so do you agree that some filtration would be better than no filtration of
how
the bodily
does
systems?
Random mutation produce any filtration?
Yeah, so there are other specialized organs in there, and if it mutates and that has a benefit like sort of a basic filtration, then it will actually get better, and those will be selected for by natural selection. Because if you have a group of creatures and some of those creatures have a better filtration system, then some of them will be selected because it's actually beneficial.
That's great. How did they get that? You know what you just said? Well, hold on. I just asked you, how does random mutation produce a specialized proto-liver? He said, well, the animal has other mechanisms that do things. And how does random mutation produce those other things?
Is everything random mutation in evolution?
Another question. From you're supposed to answer the question, Mark.
No, I'm asking a question this time.
How,
is everything
no.
random
How
mutation?
does
Is everything random mutation? Is everything random mutation?
I don't believe in
Is everything random mutation?
It's your view, dude. Don't ask me my view. It's your view you're defending, not my view.
Okay, so you don't know. Okay, that's fine. JimBob doesn't know.
It doesn't matter.
There's a number of systems that are all working together. It's not just mutation.
Produced by random mutation.
There is a whole bunch of things like, for instance, we just talked about endogenous retroviruses. That is not random mutation. Mutation plays a part in it, but it is actually the virus may have benefits like stopping other viruses from infecting the cells, because that's what retroviruses do. Because if you've studied this at all, you would understand that viruses, when they infect, they try to prevent other viruses from infecting. So that's one mechanism. There's sexual selection. There is endosymbiosis, where, like what we think in the mitochondria, that one organism enveloped another, couldn't process it, and then they started to work cooperatively. So there are all these processes going that can cause these things to rise, and basically
amazing. It rises. That's hilarious. So let me get this straight. I asked you a very pointed question. I let you talk. It's my turn.
You didn't, JimBob. You had a rise.
I know you don't want me to go.
Look at this guy go crazy when I actually
go ahead. Say whatever you need to say. Get it off, Mark.
Stop.
Get story time hour.
Land your plane, Mark, and then we'll hand it back to Jim.
Wow, this is like, wow, this guy's freaking out. So there's a whole bunch of mechanisms that we see. Like we do observe cases of endosymbiosis. There was a nitroplast recently that we observed the cell eat a nitrogen producing organism, and then they started working collectively. Hell, we've even seen organisms go from single cell to multicellular. Like the fact that JimBob is just ignorant of any experiment being done on this stuff doesn't mean that we're not experimenting. We're absolutely experimenting, and we see these mechanisms arise. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to get different structures, but it's not just mutation and selection and that's it.
Blah, 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 blah. Are you done?
JimBob.
He's freaking out. Leave him go. He's freaking out so badly.
Nowhere in that long, incoherent rambling did you even address my question, which was direct. I asked Mark here, the audience can attest. How does random mutation produce a highly specialized liver? He said it produces a proto-liver. How does random mutation produce a proto-liver? He says, well, it occurs in an organism that has these other mechanisms. How does random mutation produce these other mechanisms? And what you saw here tonight is an absolute crumble dodge. He did every desperate attempt to avoid talking about the fact that if he holds an evolutionary view, he has to tell me the mechanism that produces a liver that does any sort of specialized function. He has to tell me how a random mutation actually produces a trait that turns into a function. What did we hear from Mark in that long, incoherent rambling? He just did everything but address the question, which is how mechanistically does random mutation produce a proto-liver? And if you're going to say, well, it has other mechanisms, well, how does it produce those? You can't answer this question, and you won't. Go for it. Try it.
Yeah. So if you've got a midgut that basically is, a mutation arises, or I mean, you're really asking like, how does anything come from anything kind of thing? I'm explaining it to you, and then you just go back one step.
So you start with a midgut.
This.
So you start with the thing that I'm asking. You're asking me to justify how you get this thing. Let me just start with the thing.
Can we?
It's like a joke, man.
The midgut isn't a kidney. I don't know if you know
how'd you get the midgut,
you know biology?
Bro?
Yeah. So originally with cells that has a digestive tract, just a simple digestive tract. Yeah, see, this is what JimBob's doing. All he's doing is, how do I get that? How do I get that? How do I get that?
You're such a coward.
He just. Yeah, so he's freaking out because when you actually present facts and science, this guy freaks out. Yeah, this is science. Yeah. So it's the Lancet, which has a midgut but no kidney. That is a sort of a proto-kidney. So we see this. Do you agree that we should not see a fish that breathes air? Would you agree?
No idea if we should see that or not.
Really? You don't know?
No. How would I determine
you don't know?
Mark, how would I know if we should see that or not?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
I don't know. I don't know shit. How does a freaking organism produce a gut or a liver through random mutation? Answer it one more time. Mark.
Why are you freaking out? Why are you freaking out?
Because it's performative and fun. Now just answer the question. Stop the meta, dude. Stop the meta.
Wow.
Answer the question. How does an
organism?
did. How does it produce it? You say it starts with the mechanism.
Yeah, so it's basic digestive system to midgut to basic proto-liver filtration system to liver. All of this is slow and gradual changes over billions of years. It basically arises when some of these systems and processes produce change, and that change, which is the allele frequency change in a organism's DNA, gets replicated, and that replication is favored in the environment that it's in. So it manages to produce offspring, it produces a lot more of itself, and it becomes more and more commonplace. It's basically just mechanisms that evolution very well understands. JimBob hasn't read it because JimBob's freaking out. And,
my gosh.
You know,
Dude, what you just said is hilarious. It's so nebulous. You just said, well, over long periods of time, the processes produces the things, the mechanisms over time, and people study it and we know it happened. And yet the simple question of how mechanistically, through biological terms, does random mutation produce any mechanism at all? And guess what Marx does? He starts with a mechanism. He grants himself a mechanism. I go, how does an organism produce a specialized functional mechanism? He doesn't have an answer. He cannot answer. Nobody can, right? But they have to just say long periods of time, no idea.
Yeah, I've already answered, and I'll give you an example of one type just for the audience so you know what I'm talking about. It's basically Cladomonas reinhardti, the algae. Basically, what they did is they introduced varying levels of predation upon them, varying levels of food. Some of these formed colonies, but some of them actually became independent on each other. They went from only under that high-level predation and low-level food, right? So only under very stressful situations would they become a true multicellular organism where all the cells were dependent on one another. So from doing experimentation, we have found that these organisms, small changes can add up to from single cell to multicellular because of changing of the environment. That's exactly what they did in the experimentation. The same was done in the Lenski labs for bacteria. The same was done for Drosophila, which is fruit fly experimentation. When subjected to pressures, speciation occurred, and that was due to the selection from the predators killing all the ones that didn't cooperate.
Oh, you grant yourself predators
now.
Oh, so you granted yourself that predators exist.
Aren't you a predator? I'm pretty sure you are.
What? That's a weird thing to say.
Sorry.
That's a weird thing to say, Mark.
What do you
actually fairly irresponsible.
What do you think that is, JimBob?
What do I think what is?
A predator.
Well, you're assuming a population exists, an individual or a group of predators. That assumes that a group exists. What I'm asking is, how does random mutation produce the groups that you grant yourself in your little story?
So if we have a group of algae, are you saying that the population doesn't exist? Well, I'm doing a clarifying question. So grant myself a population.
Why?
So you think that a group of the same species in a location eating the same things and being preyed on by the same other organisms, that's not a population. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't. Dude, are you this dumb?
Well, how would I grant myself a population?
Do you know what granting means?
I don't understand that.
Do you know what granting means?
Yes, it means you assume it's true for the purposes
I didn't
of the...
say. Oh my gosh, I didn't say you grant yourself that there's such a thing as a population. I said you grant yourself the existence of a population. What I asked many times here is not only did I ask something hyper specific like how does random mutation produce a liver, but you have to tell me how random mutation produces a population. And every single time, you guys, every single time you ask this question, they go to a population. They go, well, I'm going to grant myself a population of algae with predators. And I'm like, how did you get that, Mark?
No, we don't grant ourselves that. We observe that is what happens to genes as they are. Do you understand how, like, pregnancy and birth and, like,
that requires a
transference of
population,
genes-
dummy.
No, what are you talking
Birth
about?
doesn't require an existing population. Birth.
No, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we know how genes are passed around in a group, like when they breed.
I'm asking you how you got the group from random mutation.
No, we're not even talking about that.
Yes,
we're talking
I
about
am.
having a group. Okay, just say that group was teleported there, right,
Oh,
from
wow,
nowhere.
wow.
Let's grant that.
Dude, done.
Like, seriously,
done.
can I please
You're
talk?
Done.
Can I please talk? Can I please talk?
Over.
Even
Debate
if it was
over.
even
Debate over.
No, Jimbob,
Well,
shut
give
up.
me it.
Shut up.
Gentlemen.
I told you,
Teleportation.
Sarah.
Can you give me
Enough.
teleportation?
Enough.
Jimbob can't
Enough.
help himself.
Enough.
He can't.
Grant
Reel
me
it in.
teleportation.
So he's basically saying because we can't know that got there by genetics, we can't assume there's a population. Of course we can. There's a population there. We know this to be the case. It's just so dishonest. Yeah, come on.
I didn't
Sarah.
ask whether or not there
Sarah,
is a
come on.
population.
This is ridiculous.
Bob. Enough.
What?
Oh, this
I
guy,
didn't-
he's
I
losing
didn't-
his
both of you,
crap.
Listen, stop. That's enough. Settle it down. Have the conversation, and we can save the tardedness for the open panel. Okay.
You know, there's a
Look,
difference.
I'm being fine. So we have the population there. It
You
doesn't
just
matter
give it to
how we
yourself.
got there.
It doesn't matter how we got a population.
I was speaking, Jim Bob. It doesn't matter how we got there. We understand how genetics are passed around inside of a population and how they spread through population genetics. So we can then find out how that population got there, right? Like we know how the population got there. And Jim Bob's going back to, well, you don't know it was the spread of genetics that got the population there. What the hell are you talking about?
Mark, you don't understand the pit you're in, or maybe you do. The question is, if populations is a natural phenomenon that from your view is produced by a thing called evolution, I'm asking a simple question. How does evolution produce populations? And every time I ask you, you say, well, we start with populations.
How did you get to be a population of cells, Jim Bob?
Unbelievable. Total dodge.
No, I'm asking you a question. I'm trying to clarify what you mean by population, because you are multicellular, right?
Yeah, I'm a human being, right? That's a species.
Yes, but at one point
is
you're
that
a single
objective?
cell.
Okay, is it objectively a species from
at
an
one
evolution
point
review?
you're a single cell.
That's great, but I'm not a single cell out of nowhere. I'm actually derivative of two other beings, right?
But you are aware that there are organisms which start with a single cell and create populations.
Well, no, hold on. If you grant yourself replications, I'll grant you replicating.
Mitosis.
Hold on. I'll grant you micro replication. But if you want to call that a population, all your argument would have to be then, well, humans should be able to just self-replicate, because what you're doing is an extrapolation fallacy. What you're saying is what's true of the part in this case. What's true of the part in this case, micro chemistry, basically biological movements that happen, right? Multiplication, replication, right? You're looking at that and you're saying, well, that must be true about populations. But the problem is populations as beings are made of cells, but it doesn't follow that cells just grow into beings, right? You need to have a process and a mechanism that goes from the micro, the earliest form of replicators, right? I'll even grant you replicators, Mark, just basic replicators. You still can't tell me how replicators and any sort of simple view of mutation can produce different populations of things. You just have this imagined view in your mind where cells keep growing like the game Spore, and eventually it produces populations, and then it produces two sexes, and then they have sex and all this. But you can't tell me how. You just say that it did happen. You're a fantasy. You like fantasy. You're a fantasy fan.
Yeah, so no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, hey, there are single cell organisms out there which become multicellular. I already went over this. So you're saying that can't happen, but you're clearly wrong because Cladimonus reinhardti, we
Never
have observed that happening. We've observed the single cell organism turn into a multicellular organism.
Never said that.
All the cells are dependent on one another. Now, in bacteria, which are single cell, there is still genetic transfer on a horizontal level. They actually share genes with one another. So that sharing of genes can happen in single-celled organisms. There's no problem with that. So the sort of the mechanisms that we use to do sharing between the chromosome and synthesis, that is actually just a byproduct and an extension of the proto sort of DNA sharing that microorganisms already do. But you're admitting that microevolution is already.
Are you a micro? Are you a microorganism?
JimBob, you complain when he interrupts you.
He just finished. What are you talking about?
No, I just finished. That's okay, Sarah. But
My
thank
apologies.
you. I do. It's just he's
This
very
isn't a
loud
fucking
and,
daycare.
Freaking out. Oh, freak out harder, man! Freak out harder. Go on, I love it. I
Keep
love
throwing
it.
the little one-liners in as he's talking.
He's got
It
nothing
wouldn't be that
else.
hard.
It's all he's got. It's all he's got.
Stop it.
Let him have his thing. It's all he's got.
Okay.
Look. So
he's going to keep going.
Is,
Great. Good
well,
moderation,
okay, fine,
Sara.
fine.
Great work.
Go for it.
You too.
Great work.
I asked the both of you. I said, "Are you sure
he's so
you want
mad.
to do this, dear Lord?"
I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
he asked
for it. Go ahead.
Look. It's
in
simple.
my
Simple.
defense, he asked for it. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Mark, under your view, random mutation somehow, you didn't tell us how, produces a liver. Would you say a liver has a function, or is it accidentally functional?
Has a function.
Is it accidentally functional?
No, deterministic.
Well, what determines the function of a liver that it processes toxins? What determines
the
that?
beneficial nature of whatever the mutation has caused? If it's detrimental, it'll be weeded out through natural selection. If it is beneficial, it will come under something called purifying selection, which means that it will be selected for and reinforced into the genetic line of whatever it is that the genotype of whatever it is that is there. How would that not be able to produce? I'm just asking a question. How would that, if something can go from single cellular to multicellular, how could it not go from something to a liver? Why is that impossible?
Why are you dodging? I'm just trying to do a basic little bit of inquiry.
I answered it and then asked a question.
No, that's not how this was going to work the whole time. Okay. So the reason I ask you, if random mutation produces some sort of trait, but it has to develop into beneficial, right? You would agree that the random trait that you're assuming that a random mutation produce. Hold on, just let me.
I'm not answering
get the
any more questions until you answer mine.
Unbelievable! You're such a bitch.
Oh my God, JimBob, you're killing me tonight.
He's freaking out. No, just answer my question and then we can move on to yours. That's fine.
Literally, I asked you a question so I can do a follow-up, and you're doing a dodge. No, it's called a line.
No, it's called a back and forth.
Sarah, do we need to do cross-examination?
I'm about to put a timer up for the two of you. If you can't unfuck yourselves, figure it out. You're grown men. Continue, JimBob, please.
Okay, so the reason I asked is a liver produced by accidental processes. One part is random. You're going to say that's kind of accidental, but you're going to say that the environment, if it's workable, right, for the organism, the trait that it produces, if it's workable with the environment, it'll keep it, right? But it doesn't have any deciding factor whether it's going to keep it. It also randomly keeps it. It's just luck. So the reason I asked this question, Mark, is if it's random mutation that produces a random trait that only over time will be determined to be beneficial based on the environment, the time between it starting that process of developing a mechanism and finishing that form, it has to basically spend energy developing something that's not benefiting it. So it doesn't make any sense in the process. It's actually using energy to support a thing that's developing, but it doesn't know why it's keeping it. So for evolution, this is why going granular is so important in debating evolution proponents, is because they have to hold this, visualize this, audience, in your mind. There's a mutation that produces some semblance of an effect, and the organism doesn't know if that effect is going to be beneficial, but it reproduces the effect for many, many millions of years to finally become an effective thing. But it has no knowledge of this. It just does it and just happens to do it, right? And then he's saying that the environment will kill it if it's not beneficial. And if it's beneficial, the environment won't kill it. But the problem with this view is that the organism, from a biological perspective, needs a justification for maintaining the care for a mechanism that it has no use for. Now, why, Mark, would a simple organism that develops some sort of directionality toward a function or an apparatus or a mechanism, why would it keep and spend energy on something that's not benefiting it? For the maybe chance in a million years that it develops into a liver, why would it? How do you make sense of that, Mark?
Yeah, so I've already answered this question over and over and over. Basically, that it is of some benefit, and that outweighs the energy cost of producing it. Let's look at our experiment in Cladomonas reinhardti, the single cellular and multicellular algae. What it basically did is it at first became a colony, right, which is not as sort of multicellular. The colony, they can leave, they can branch out, they are not a true multicellular organism. But under increased predation, it became multicellular. So these things have a benefit and cost trade-off. So if a filtration, your midgut, you're a fish, your midgut becomes sort of capable of filtering a little bit of waste, which is beneficial to you. Its energy cost isn't huge, so that will be favored among the environment. And Jim Bob keeps like doing this straw man that, oh, it's completely random because the environment is random. Look, there's an element of randomness called genetic drift, but it's not all random. It's if that trait is beneficial, like, for instance, the mud skipper, which I was going to ask about you earlier. It is a fish that can breathe air through a proto-lung inside of it, which is its swim bladder that has evolved to become a proto-lung. So you can find these things on trees. It is not a full-formed lung, but it is incredibly beneficial to a fish that lives in very shallow water and mud, incredibly beneficial. So it is not a full-formed organ, but it still is beneficial. And you're like, well, if the environment changes, yeah, that's one of the things of evolution. If the environment changes, it will weed out all the organisms unsuited for it. That is exactly how it works. And it will favor the organisms that have structures that is beneficial to it. So it doesn't matter that you think, well, the environment's random. It doesn't matter. It is still deterministic on the environment, whether it succeeds or not. But it is not the only way that these advantages get into the genetic sequence of the organism. It is also a number of other things. You're just fixated on this because you are so ignorant of the subject. This is the only thing you understand. So it is actually incredible that you can't talk about anything else, and you can't answer a single question that I have about anything about the subject. I've answered you multiple times how this happens. You just go, nah. And that's your entire response.
Can I go now? Okay, so you said two things there. One, you didn't answer the simple question. It would be true that an organism that has a random mutation in the direction of some trait or mechanism that's not even built yet, it's true that it would have no reason to maintain that if it doesn't give it an advantage. So that means that at every step of the way, in conjunction with the environment, the development of something that's not fully developed would have to give some benefit. But what benefit is the thing if it's not developed? It has to be developed. But if it was developed and it gave a benefit, it would maintain the benefit. And he's basically telling a story. The other thing he said, I don't know if you guys noticed, he said cost benefit analysis. Mark, isn't it true that cost benefit analysis requires an evaluator?
No.
It doesn't. So to do an analysis, it doesn't require an evaluator.
No, we analyze what the cost benefit is, but
we are
an analysis in nature. It's not us in nature doing it. It is just selection.
You're in a contradiction then.
This is just muddying the waters.
No, you're in a contradiction. I know you don't like this.
I basically explained all of it.
Bro,
it's basically,
you're slow cooked.
It is. No. It is just a natural selection between the costs. If it costs too much energy and they can't upkeep,
who does the analyzing of that, Mark? Who does the analysis? No.
We do.
Before we exist, Mark.
We do. We go out into the wild and we find organisms that have not survived.
Before us, you're saying there's a cost-benefit analysis that happens in the organism.
I'm simply explaining how you would analyze this. I'm telling you the science.
A story.
The science.
Look, dude, it's really simple.
I don't care.
You can't have an organism.
That is the science.
you're doing post-diction and saying there's an organism that in its process of developing something that it doesn't even know if it's going to benefit it, but it maintains energy and calories toward maintaining it. It's like saying, like, I'm going to drive a car and I'm going to keep the AC, even though the AC doesn't work and I don't even know what it is, right? But there's energy going to the, hold on a second. There's energy going to the air conditioner. Well, from a strictly Darwinian evolutionary view, you would actually lose the air conditioner if you don't know it, if it doesn't give you any benefit. It would actually be using resources and calories to keep something that's not fully developed. You would have to have knowledge of the future development of the said mechanism in order to justify keeping it. Yeah.
Oh, so you think evolution happens like in one organism, like they just decide?
I don't think evolution happens, Mark. What is the topic of the debate?
Because you're basically saying, oh, it decides whether to keep it. No, it doesn't.
You're saying
it is just what happened. No, I'm not. It is what I said, because you are such a liar, is a cost versus benefit, right? And not analysis. It is just cost versus benefit. That's all. If the costs outweigh the benefit, it will die. That's the thing. And we examine this all the time. Say dogs, for instance, when we're using artificial selection, which is exactly the same mechanism. It's exactly the same. We just remove the ones that we don't like and we breed the ones that we do. It is the same exact mechanism artificial selection. So you just don't want it to be true. You're basically saying, Mark, well, how does the dog know that it wants to do this? How does the dog know that it wants to be selected for by humans? No, that's not what happens. What happens is that the environment, in this case, the humans, are selecting which ones survive and which ones don't. Out in the wild, it is just the environment that selects which ones do and which ones don't.
Wait, we're not in the wild?
That is all.
Wait, we're not in the wild?
Are you in the wild? I don't know. Looking like that, you could be anywhere. No, I have no idea.
That's kind of interesting. That was good, Mark. I'll give you that. That was a good one. But the thing is, you're determining what the wild is, but that's a bizarre position, because it sounded like you say what we do is still evolution. It's still evolution. We're selecting breeds and discarding the ones. You know, from that view, you sound like a eugenicist in a sense. Well, you know, why not do that with humans, Mark?
Why not do that with humans? Because have you seen a pug dog? It's terrible. Like, you can't select for the things that humans need to survive, because we're a social species and we don't know which traits we're going to need in the future. We're not oracles. We're not fortune tellers. We're not this kind of thing that will know exactly what we need. And limiting your genetic pool is usually, have you seen thoroughbred animals, like breeds, the very highly specific? They're usually pretty inbred, Jim Bob.
Yeah,
it's not good for them.
Yeah. So that the problem, that the whole view here, Mark, is I'm always going to go back to this, is that you're holding a view that there's a mechanistic thing that happens, right, inside of an organism. That, by the way, I ask, how does evolution produce all of these organisms? You just say it does. But when I ask you, when an organism has a mutation that starts the process, from your view, of developing a highly specialized thing, like a liver, like a heart, like veins, like a brain, like all of these things that you say take a long time to develop, you have to hold the view, Mark, that every moment in between, right, then and now, right, that there has to be an advantage or something that the environment doesn't eliminate, right? There has to be something advantageous every step of the way, but that means that every step of the way, the mechanism does something different that's advantageous, but it's also on its way of not being that thing. So that would mean that the heart at some point, Mark, and I don't know if you hold this view, do you hold the view that the heart as it is wasn't always the heart? Was it something else?
I don't know. I mean, like, what are you talking about exactly? If it's not a heart, then it's something else. Like, we
was it always a heart?
Terms on things. Well,
was it always a heart?
No. I mean, if you go back to like sort of proto-molecules, prokaryotes, eukaryotes, they don't have hearts. No. So we're talking about, and there's a number of mechanisms that we have. Like there is endosymbiosis, for instance, that we can take on like organelles from other organisms and use them. There's a lot of these different mechanisms at play. So it's not just mutation, but once there is an organelle, that can then, sure, mutate into something else. Sure, it doesn't have to be a heart. That's what I'm
Mark,
telling you. I'm telling you that for instance, a bacterial flagellum, which was the creationist go-to, that has the same structure as an injectosome, a pump in the body. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same thing. And traits can actually be neutral and still get through that selection process because they're not detriment to the organism.
Okay, the question was, Mark, the heart as we know it, right? Because like if you go to the doctor, God forbid any one of us need a new heart or something, the doctor makes a heart with a very specific function. He wouldn't say it has no function. He has to say this heart, you need this heart for this function for the rest of your body, right? What I'm saying, what I'm asking you, Mark, is from the evolutionary view, was there a time where the heart as we know it in the human, and I'll grant you all the types of animals you think we splintered from. Isn't it true that at some point the heart wasn't the heart? It was some other thing. It did something else. It wasn't actually doing what the heart does. Doesn't that have to be true?
Sure.
So that this is what I'm interested in is that the evolution proponent actually argues at some scale that the animals we see, humans and other things, used to be other things. But when you go deeper into the body, they have to simultaneously argue that the parts of our bodies were other things. So now you have the changing and the functionality of different things inside the body, changing and developing in relation to the rest of the body. But you also have the idea that the actual species itself is in this sort of like flux nominal system. But the problem with that view is that you couldn't actually develop a working system inside of a body unless the body itself maintained its structure. If the body itself was changing, then the function of the body inside would be it would have to be related to the body itself. These things can't be separated. So how we function.
What happens if it does? What happens if there's a what happens if it does and there's a mutation so that the heart goes back to, you know, a pre-heart state? What happens then?
But that's the question I'm asking you. Let's
I just asked you.
I know. Let's think about that. Let's imagine there's a pre-heart state. You have to tell me from the evolutionary view what a pre-heart is.
No, I asked a question.
Yeah, I granted it. There's a pre-heart. What is that?
No. I asked what happens to that organism if a mutation occurs that sends it back to that state without the rest of the body being set up for that.
Well, isn't your position that these things don't happen at the individual? It's a population.
Yeah, I asked a question. I'm still waiting for an answer.
It's a malformed question. It's not even consistent with your own evolutionary view.
No, it's not.
You're asking
do you know what an atavism is, JimBob?
No, what is it?
An atavism is basically a mutation in a gene that turns on a gene that's previously been turned off. Like, for instance, we have a gene inside us that will actually produce a tail in humans. And occasionally there's a mutation which will turn that back on, and a child will be born with a tail.
How do you know it's a tail?
What?
Why are you calling it a tail?
Because it's a tail.
No. That doesn't answer the question. How do you know it's a tail?
Because like, do you think what are you talking about? We have doctors.
We have doctors that call it tails. How do you know it's a tail, Mark?
Well, what?
How do you know it's a tail?
How do I know that's a question? It is what it is, JimBob. What are you talking about?
Another defeat. I'm victorious tonight.
Another atavism is, like, for instance, a gene turns back on and chickens will grow teeth. Right, that's an atavism. Chickens used to have teeth. And so your question would be, how do you know it's teeth?
Well, a teeth would serve a function, right? How do you know a human has the functional tail? Teeth you can chew with, right?
I didn't say functional. I just said tail. Where did functional come from?
Then what's a tail then?
It is an extension of the spinal column that forms another appendage that is in the posterior location on the body.
So the thing is, if
I can't believe I'm telling
I
you
can't
what
believe
a
I
tail
can't
is.
believe I can't tell you what. How do I know what tail
Can I
is?
just point out, Jim
You're so
Bob's
funny, dude. You're
understanding
such
of
a silly
biology
Billy.
is so bad, he does not know
Yeah,
what
well
a
poison.
tail is.
Well poisoning. Yeah, that's all you
Wow.
got. That's all you got. That's all you got. Well
How can you
poisoning
tell
and
it's a well?
fallacies.
How can you tell it's a well, and how can you tell it's poison?
Hey, you're the one who called it a tail. I'm just.
How do you tell it's a well? How can you tell anything is anything? It's all up in the air.
No, that's the thing. Hey, Mark, when you look at a baby inside the womb.
How can you tell it's a baby? How can you tell it's a baby? How can you tell?
It has the form of a baby. And we know it's a human. Yeah, and then
how
humans
can you tell, though? How can you tell? You haven't actually told me how you can tell it's a baby.
Okay, so
wow, it's insane.
Mark, you're the one who couldn't. You're the one who couldn't answer the question.
Dear.
Now you're coping because you couldn't answer the question.
I actually did define
a tail is a tail.
Was.
That's because it's a tail.
Yeah.
How do you know it's a tail? Well, it's a tail. No, you're taking something that happens with babies, right? And you're saying, oh, this problem that happens, it's a type of deformity. You're saying, therefore, the deformity happens. Therefore, we used to have tails. Yeah. How did you know that?
Because we've substituted those exact genetics into mice, and they're born without tails that humans have. So we know that the genetics for a tail was there.
Oh, interesting.
And it is simply we just change it to turn that gene off because scientists are doing actual research and not just being ignorant on the internet.
Okay, so if you manipulate genetics, different things will happen with bodies, right?
For the one specific gene that produces a tail in mice, that if you copy over that gene which turns it off on humans, it then doesn't grow a tail. So how does that happen apart from us having the genetics for a tail and it is turned off? And occasionally there is a mutation to turn it back on, which is why children are born with tails.
They call them tails, but I'm still wondering, how do you know those are tails? And it seems like you can't really answer the question.
They are true tails. They're soft skin-covered appendages of adipose tissue, muscle, blood vessels, and nerves. Yeah. They actually are.
So they're made of similar things. So my finger's a tail. Based on your standard, my finger's a tail.
No,
why isn't my finger a tail?
That's
why
not
isn't my
adipose tissue.
Why isn't my...
It's not adipose tissue.
So it's tissue that you're saying that we could produce humans with tails?
If we wanted to, yeah. All we do is turn that gene back on. Yeah, we could, but we don't experiment on humans. That's incredibly unethical.
So you're saying if I wanted a tail and the parent said, yes, I want a tail, why would it be unethical? I don't understand this. Where are you drawing your
this
ethics?
isn't a morality debate. This is simply...
You brought an ethic, bro. You brought an ethics.
No, I just told you why we don't do it, because we don't experiment on humans. I already told you.
Yeah, but it could be advantageous.
Let's keep it in scope.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Well, no, evolution is in scope because the entailment of no pun intended. The entailment of evolution is that we could enhance, right? If it's good
dodging the topic now.
If it's good to enhance manipulation to our advantage, well, I don't understand the problem. Why aren't we manipulating each other to...
I've already answered this, that we don't know what we will actually need in the future. So it's a very bad idea because we don't know. That's the problem. But what we do know is that all of these things do point to evolution, and they're only the tip of the iceberg, Jim Bob. I could go down a huge list of other evidence. You still haven't addressed chromosome 2 fusion, why that's incorrect.
How does that mean we came from how does that mean we came from other animals, though? That's your position, dude.
What we expected to find, if there was a fusion between human and, say, some ancestor of the chimpanzee, what we would expect to find in humans is telomeres, which are the ends of that chromosome fused in the middle in a degraded way with another centromere. And we do find that. So why do we find that?
Mark, why are you only framing between humans and this other animal? Isn't it necessary that before even the chimps and any other animal you're saying is our ancestor, wouldn't you have to go back another step and say, let's follow it back, right?
Well, I'll tell you, because out of any genetic sequence, we've studied ourselves and our closest relative, the chimpanzee, the most. We have sequenced completely both of those genomes. So that is where we do the majority of our study, because evolution isn't just for like, how did we get here? It's interesting, but that's not what it's for. It's for medicine. We have to be able to counter certain genetic anomalies that come up that cause disease. And we have to be able to, if one of these viruses that is inserted into the human genome, one of the HERVs, human endogenous retroviruses, gets turned back on, we have to know how to combat that. So, of course, we study human genetics more than anything else.
That's
Why
nice.
wouldn't we?
So like from that view, you're saying we have to study these things. From that view, how do you know from the evolutionary view that exposing ourselves to these things would actually produce a more advantageous traits?
We don't. But
so then why are you hold on? Why are you
finish? Let me finish. Let me finish.
Why are you arbitrarily?
Let me finish. We don't. But what we do know is that natural selection, when exposed to natural selection, it turns out to be a really catastrophic for individuals. So that wouldn't be a good thing across the board. It wouldn't be
good.
Beneficial, yes. That's what I mean by good, is beneficial for the organisms. Yes.
If you don't know that exposure to the things you're trying to avoid, if you don't know that it would produce something in the long term that would be extremely beneficial, you're arbitrarily saying we should guard against these things.
No, what we've done through medicine is expand the tolerance we have for these things. How many people can be born with these things? But what will happen is evolution will happen anyway. It's going to occur no matter what we do.
Yeah.
Oh,
So tell me, if evolution is happening right now, does it follow that what we consider the heart may not be the heart in a number of branches in the future? Through a number of branches in the future?
If that was the case, it would literally take billions of years. Like, I don't know how long that would take. You know, you're sort of saying, because the problem is that it all depends on the environment. So if the environment, there was some real advantage to not having a heart, maybe. But, you know, I mean, you're talking about stuff where I don't know the environment in the future. So how could I?
Well, I mean, you don't. Yeah, I understand. But the thing is, if you're saying it could take billions of years, to hold an evolutionary view, you'd have some sort of claim on how long it took to develop the heart in the first place. Billions of years, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we see those organs and the pseudo organs start to appear, like you know, in certain organisms, in sort of a certain way. We know that, for instance, chordata, right, like the backbone. We know when that started to stop being just a cartilage and things and started to form a backbone, and we know that through the fossil record.
Well, the question is, how do you, like, biologically, because I know that evolution mostly, at least in the way it's argued, mostly looks at similarity in anatomy and phenotype. But when it comes down to asking simple questions, that I'm not saying the answer is simple, but I'm saying that the question itself is fairly simple and fair, is to say there has to be a moment in time, back as far as you want to go, where every part of the human body that serves a function was actually non-existent or in some sort of development. And the evolution proponent has to hold the view that the development of singular unrelated organs and mechanisms develop simultaneously with other unrelated organisms, but they somehow also work together, but it's produced by random mutation. And
I don't always work together.
Well, I mean, for them to develop as we are now, do you agree the human body works together?
No, they don't always work together.
Does the human body work together?
99% of organisms are extinct. They don't always work together. Like, things die at an alarming rate.
Really?
That's
because
the
of
whole
why?
point. Yeah.
Because of why?
Because they basically do not survive in the environment, because they don't have the advantages that the other organisms have. Just like the organisms in that Cladomonas reinhardti, the reason why they did it over and over is because those organisms, there were some that just got eaten by the predator. They didn't cooperate and got eaten. So this is the thing. We're not saying that it always works. What we're saying, that a majority of the time it doesn't work, and it's called the weak anthropomorphic principle. We just go, well, you know, it was so pure chance that we got here, and it's like, no, we're just the ones that survived.
I understand, but that's kind of like, so I'm trying to give you back your argument. You're saying the animals and populations we see today exist because of their adaptability, in short, right?
Well, adaptation's got a very, very specific meaning. That's epigenetics. It's basically like my skin adapts to sunlight by producing more melanin and then darkening it, basically.
How would you put back the premise then? Just put back my premise.
That's not evolution. Evolution is me passing my genes on to my children, and then they get selected. So you're using the wrong terminology. It is not adaptation.
Fine. Let's get more rigorous. The animals and organisms, including the plants we see today, exist because they evolved to be everything that was produced by their evolution was put them in a position where they could survive in the environment. Is that fair?
What do you mean put in the position?
Oh my gosh, dude.
What put them?
The animals we see today survived because they evolved to survive.
Yes. It's an arms race. Yes.
Got you. And you know this because you see them surviving today, right?
No.
Why is it that you know that that's the reason they survived? How do you know that?
Well, we see the beneficial traits arising not only in the fossil record, but also through genetics and things like that. Like we know that these animals have the ability to pass on their genes. Like, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, the reason I'm asking you is you're making a causal claim, and you're saying premise one is the animals we see today, they exist because they survived based on how they evolved. And I said, how do you know that? Other than you see them surviving, you have to assume, well, they survived, so it has to be the case. But the problem with that view, Mark, is, isn't it the case even today that just a regular old variety natural disaster could actually take out quite a bit of organisms and animals?
Yes.
So
that's
it wouldn't be the
drift. Hang on a sec. Hang on. I want to answer that. That is genetic drift. And I mentioned it earlier. It plays a part in evolution. It is like natural disasters and things like that. We have already factored that in. It's not like natural disasters will take out tons of organisms all the time with no chance of, whatever. That is something that we factor in. And they do have the maths and algorithms to work this into the system, which they do study in great detail in order to tell what effect it will have on a population. But I want to ask you a question. If you put a fox into the... It's not a dodge. I just answered your question. If you put a fox into a native population in Australia, will it thrive or will it die out?
I'm not sure. I never tried that.
Okay. Well, just say it thrives because it's a pest and it's an invasive species, right? Why does it thrive? Why do invasive species suddenly get overwhelmingly, the problem with the population going? Why did they do so well?
Why do invasive species do so well?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, a lot of them reproduce at a very high rate, which counters any kind of death. That would be one variable, like rats, the amount that they reproduce, and this would be true of certain insects, many insects as well, that the level of reproduction outweighs whatever kind of predators that would be around, right?
But that's not the only way, right?
Well, I mean, that would be I would say that would be the main way is countering with massive levels.
That's the main way.
I think that's the main way.
So consider, for instance, the cane toad, a poisonous toad. And I do say poisonous, not venomous, a poisonous toad introduced to Australia, which is really, really dangerous. Why did the cane toad suddenly become an invasive species out of control in population?
Maybe because it couldn't be eaten.
Right.
So that doesn't tell me how it became. This is the thing, is Mark's view would hold this. The poisonous toad developed poison, and it was advantageous to develop poison so it couldn't be eaten. But the problem is the point between A, where it's not poisonous and it is poisonous, it actually has to survive just as well without the poison.
Dodge. So JimBob's trying to go back to this idea of you have to go back and back and back. No, this is basically just showing that if you have an organism in an environment where it has a significant advantage, that the other animals will die and it will thrive. And that is the entire explanation of natural
which animals die?
Among...
Wait a second. Which animals die because toads can survive? What do you mean? I don't understand.
Crows, possums.
Other things.
Sorry?
How is it an advantage to a predator to eat all the animals that it lives on?
What?
How is it an advantage for a predator to develop the skill to eat everything that it lives on until there's nothing left? What's the advantage there?
Oh
Mark?
my God! You think the toads eat other?
I didn't say
animals?
that. I said nothing about toads. What's the advantage to any predator, Mark? Listen carefully. I know you're holding your head. You had a headache from this. What's the advantage? Mark,
this is hilarious.
Focus, bro. You're getting nervous. You're getting nervous.
Well, I was talking about the cane toads.
Mark.
Yeah.
Focus. What's the advantage of a predator eating everything it needs to survive until there's nothing left to eat?
There is none.
Great. So it goes both ways here. So you're saying yeah, co-parter.
Look. We're talking about the cane toads. They don't actually go and eat possums, right? That's not what happens. They're poisonous, right? So something eats them and it dies. The reason why they've been so successful is because none of the animals have a natural defense against them in their area. Now, just say a possum figures out what to do with them. They can drop a rock on them or something instead of biting at them. That will actually survive. And that's the entire premise behind natural selection.
Actually,
and you want to basically go back and say, oh, but how did that come about? How'd that come? It doesn't matter with what we're talking about. All we're talking about is the selection mechanism for organisms with their advantageous traits in that environment. That's it.
Mark, the problem with your view is that from the evolutionary view, with a lot of time, all the animals, right, that would otherwise die from eating the toad, giving it billions of years, would also develop some sort of defense mechanism against the toad. Maybe the possum, by the way, figures out just without thinking to lick the toad just a little bit every day, just a tiny bit, but doesn't even know. It's just licking it, and it develops some sort of resistance to the toad. But this is the thing. You can't have both. You can't say the toad survived because it was poison. You can't say the toad survived because what? I'm talking.
I think you're getting it.
What?
I think you're getting it.
What?
I think you're getting it.
Getting what?
Well, that possum that learns how to, that just has a natural propensity for not biting it and just licking it and builds up an immunity, would they pass that on to their children?
The behavior or the immunity?
The immunity and the behavior.
If it was the case they passed on both, it wouldn't change the fact that they're still possums, bro. Shh. Giggle away, bro. You're getting totally cooked tonight. Giggle away.
They're still possums, bro. So you've basically got, and I'll explain why I'm losing it here, because basically Jim Bob's just given the perfect example of what happens when an invasive species comes. None of the animals have a defense. So the evolution of that toad in its own population, it's at a level it can sustain, because it isn't that the other animals are adapted to it. When it goes into a new one, they're not. But what will happen is that natural selection will kill the possums that can't cope with it, but the ones that can survive, and therefore they will be selected for. So that evolution, which is allele frequency change over time, that is a fact, and it's also a theory.
That doesn't.
So those
fact and a theory. Facts and a theory.
Just say there's another group of possums that learn to avoid them completely. Those two will split off because they will have different defense mechanisms against the toad, and they will become different species of possum because their entire genetic code will change.
That's amazing.
Now, add that up over 8 billion years, and Jim Bob wants to say, oh, because it's microevolution, it can't go. It's like saying, well, if it can go an inch, it can't go a yard.
No, dude.
Why can't it? Here's my question. Why can't it produce speciation?
Well, speciation is your claim. I'm not claiming something can't happen, Mark. You're claiming something does happen.
It can. Okay, fantastic. It can happen.
No,
that's awesome.
No,
okay, just conceded. Fantastic.
That actually doesn't follow at all. If you're the one claiming it can happen, me saying it can't is not the same claim as you have to tell me how it can, right?
That's an affirmative claim.
No, I didn't say it can't. That's saying
an affirmative claim. You said it can't. That's exactly what you just said, Jim Bob.
No, I didn't. I didn't say it can't.
And
I said
speciation.
Are you retarded?
Occur?
Speciation, you're referring to, you're claiming, Mark, that the whatever given animal, a toad. First of all, you have to tell me.
Speciation happen?
It's your claim. I don't see how speciation happens. It's your claim.
But can it happen?
I don't even know what that means. What does that even mean?
Speciation.
What does it mean?
Something changing from one species into another species.
How do you determine that happens?
Genetic line.
How do you determine that happens?
I'm asking you a question. Can speciation happen? Because you said
I have
it
no reason to
can't
believe
happen
that.
earlier. Did you misspeak when you said it can't happen?
Mark, I'm trying to answer. I have no reason to believe speciation, as you refer to it, which means the possum in this case develops changes and adaptations to the environment in relation to the toad over time, where it eventually no longer is a possum, right? That's what you're saying? It's no longer itself?
A possum.
Oh, really?
That's cladistics, yes.
So were we always so that's the thing, is like, this is another killer position here, is that
you don't understand genetics at all.
Hold on, stop interrupting me. I know you're not doing well tonight. I know it's not doing taxonomy is arbitrary.
I'm doing fantastic.
Is taxonomy arbitrary?
Fantastic.
Mark, is taxonomy objective or arbitrary?
It's not arbitrary. There are reasons why we put stuff together. Yeah.
Oh, really?
But what I said first was cladistics as well. Is cladistics arbitrary?
Oh, look. It's not even true that the current evolution proponents
is cladistics arbitrary. I'm asking about cladistics.
No, you stop dodging for a second, dude.
I'm not dodging. You're dodging. You're doing it right now. I asked you, is cladistics arbitrary?
Taxonomy, any form of classification under the evolutionary view is arbitrary.
Not
any classification.
Taxonomy. Cladistics.
Cladistics is a branch of taxononomy.
It's based upon genetic information.
It's a branch of taxonomy, bro.
So if you like, we are still eukaryotes, right?
Eukaryotes, we are.
You haven't heard.
It's arbitrary.
You don't know what eukaryotes are.
That's arbitrary.
What's a eukaryote? What's a eukaryote?
Stop asking questions. Were we always eukaryotes?
What's a eukaryote?
Dude, were we always eukaryotes?
No.
Okay.
We're prokaryotes.
So now we're prokaryotes?
Yeah, then eukaryotes.
Is that classification arbitrary for the time, or does it change?
Is it arbitrary for the time, or does it change? No. Once something is a eukaryote, it will continue to be a eukaryote.
Okay, so what you call a human is just a temporary moment in time. And it once wasn't, and it came from something that's not that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you say something came from something that it's not, that's on you to demonstrate, not me.
Cool.
So cool. Demonstrate something that comes from something that it's not.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so a dog produced a cancer, venereal cancer, that is not anything like a dog, but it still has exactly the same genetic code. Oh. And that can transmit itself, live on dogs. It is a.
Is that a dog organism. Or a cancer?
It's a cancer.
Is it a dog?
It's part of a dog. Yeah.
Is it a dog or a cancer? Which is it, buddy?
It's the same thing.
There's no reason
why something can't be both. There's no cladistic. There's no cladistic in taxonomy for a cancer. That isn't a thing, right? So I've given an example.
The insanity of evolution here.
Me, are you still?
Is it a dog or a cancer?
Are you a eukaryote?
No, stop. Let's stick with the cancer because this is interesting. I heard about this, Mark.
It is both. It is both.
So something can be itself and not itself at the same time?
That's not what I said. It's like I am a human and an Australian. Like you're not comparing the same thing.
So cancer is
in the hold it. Let me finish. Because in the way we classify it, there is no cancer in there, right? There's no there's not animals, plants, and cancers. That's not a thing. So you're basically saying, is it part of this group? Yes. Is it part of this other group of class? Okay. Yes, it is. It's like I am a human and I'm also an Australian. So JimBob's basically saying, no, I want to finish. JimBob's basically saying, are you a human or an Australian? Is basically what he's saying.
Australian is totally error. Australian's not biology, dude. You're such an idiot. So look, that's a disanalogy. It's a disanalogous.
What are you talking about?
Is Australian biology?
No.
Great. Shut up.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. You're disanalogous. I just refuted your analogy.
Yeah, so human is a taxonomic and cladistic category, and cancer is not. Yes, they're not of the same category. You're making a category error. What are you talking about?
You just refuted yourself. So if you listen to the contradiction he just made, he just said a human and cancer are not the same category, but he just said a dog and the cancer are both categories.
If you get cancer, will it have your genetic sequence?
Well, yeah, Cancer
Yeah.
Cancer as cells. Cancer as cells. If I cut the cancer out, if I cut the cancer out, Mark, of a dog, the thing you're referring to, do I put it on the table and say that's a dog?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's a cancer.
Thank you. That's to my point, because I asked originally, Mark, the question was...
You asked for something that came from something else that wasn't that thing, and I gave it to you.
No, dude.
Yes, that's exactly what you asked for.
No, cancer... No, dude, cancer at the biological level,
Are you asking for an example of an organism
bro.
that produces something that is the same thing? Is that what you're asking for?
No. I asked you a simple question. There are dogs, right? They have sex. They reproduce. I didn't ask I didn't ask whether a dog can have some sort of foul infection or multiplicity of cells called cancer that it needs to be evacuated from the body or otherwise it dies. Whether or not it produces, that's like saying I took a shit, therefore the shit is a human. You're such an idiot.
Is the shit alive?
It doesn't matter. It's not a human.
I mean, I'd believe it out of you. I think that you know
that's the kind of
the floor.
That's all you got, bro. That's all you got. That's all you got, dude.
Anyway,
You're just getting totally.
So basically, he asked for a sort of something that isn't an organism coming from the organism.
I didn't ask that.
Example.
I didn't ask that. No, now you're lying. Now you're lying. Now look at the liar.
All he's got to say.
Audience, you see him lying?
To say.
I asked you.
I've given multiple descriptions of multicellularity from single cellularity. All of this research that we've done, I've given like indications. I've given hard evidence of how we understand this science, why it is absolutely true, or maybe not absolutely, as Jim Bob wants to smuggle in, but how we know it's true. And all you've done is just gone, nah. How did you get to that
point? Not even close,
That's
bro.
all you've done. That's all you've done, Jim Bob.
Yeah. Asking how we got to a point is part of the evolutionary view, Mark. And what I just demonstrated is I asked you a simple question. Tell me an example of a kind, a species, right? Let's say dog or human.
What's a kind?
A species.
I don't know what a kind is.
Shut up. I'm talking. So I asked him a simple question. Tell me when a human or any other species produces something not itself, and he says cancer, and I go, cool. By that argument, pooping and popping a zit is also producing a new species.
Yeah, but that's alive and has the same genetic code as the original dog. But like, are you asking like, have we seen a species produce another species? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the view is that over a long time, that's what you're claiming is happening, right?
Yes.
Cool. How do you determine that it happened?
Well, we see new species being produced. We've seen speciation in, all kinds of things, like
what?
Dropspilia, fruit flies.
Fruit flies. Oh, so so the experiment was you had some fruit flies. You introduced an external stimuli to the flies, right? And then it was unable to reproduce with its previous kind, right?
Yeah, and was markedly different. It had mutations that were different than
the
original specimen that prevented it from
Mark, was it still a fly?
Way.
Mark, was it still a fly?
Well, you asked for speciation.
You have about 5 more minutes left, gentlemen.
Is this fly, if you keep producing that experiment, does it ever not be a fly?
It's a different species of fruit fly.
Does it ever become not a fly, bro?
No, it's always going to be a fly because
evolution debunked. Evolution debunked. Goodbye.
No, it's because we are still chordata, we are still mammalia, we are still animalia, we are still in this same category. Like you don't have an understanding of biology. It's like saying, well, will something ever change from human to something else? No, we're going to change from human further and further. Well, I said it's like. That's why I said it's like and not you said. Like, try to listen, Jim Bob. I know it's hard, but do try to listen. So the question was, have we observed speciation? Yes, we have. Have we got evidence that all of us used to be related? Yes, we have. And I've given that evidence.
No. The question is on a long time frame, Mark.
Yes.
You just looked at a small time frame where a fly, or you can use the mosquito example that's often used. When I debated Craig, when he said the mosquito, you introduce some sort of thing to it, and then it basically is degrading the population. It's actually introducing something that affects negatively the population. Hold on, and so what happens is, when something's no longer can reproduce with its previous kind, you call it like it's changing, like speciation. Like, Mark, hypothetical. If there were a group of, I don't know, people of color that suddenly couldn't reproduce with white people, are they now not humans?
No. What are you talking
They are
about?
human. They are humans.
Well, yeah.
Are they different species if they can't reproduce with us?
Well, it depends on what reason. If you're saying the genetic differences are so different that they can't, like they're not compatible anymore, then yeah, they're not human.
So, Mark, if you introduce something that basically alters and damages a population so they can't reproduce with its previous kind, your view is that by damaging by damaging species, by damaging that species, that population, that it no longer can produce with its previous kind, you have to deem it. So if I introduced poison, a type of poison to a certain, shut up! I said species.
You keep saying it. You didn't. No, you didn't. Look,
I clarified
it and say that.
I said. I clarified.
You keep saying it.
Stop it! I'm about to wreck you. Shut up.
Oh,
so
yeah, sure you are.
If based on, I want you to. He's going to try to stop me from doing this. Based on Mark's reasoning. If you introduce a damaging external thing to a population, let's call it a group of black people, Mark, just for the sake of provocation. If you introduce something to a group of black people and they no longer, by damage to their biology, can no longer reproduce with other humans, they're a new species. They're not the same.
Because if you damage them through some kind of, I don't know what you're talking about, like some sort of weird ass sterilization process. I don't want to know your fan fiction over that.
Natural.
Okay, just say that's the case. It doesn't change their genetic sequence unless it is an inserted retroviral element which has been passed down to the germline and then propagated.
Here it is. If you introduce something like something
that takes like literally millions of years.
If you could introduce it hypothetically, because it's logically possible,
if it's some conspiracy theory,
you're coping so hard, dude. You know this is the end.
I'm not. I'm just.
Why are you interrupting then?
Why are you interrupting?
Shut your mouth.
Another species.
Do you need duct tape?
Wow. Do you?
No. What? Good.
What are you advocating for?
I'm not. I'm doing an internal critique.
Finish the thought, JimBob.
It's weird.
I just want you to all know. I want you to. Oh, calling me weird helps. So by Mark's reasoning, George Floyd is an ape. Just so you know, he said that. Two,
you're an ape.
If you introduce something that damages a population such that they can't reproduce with the previous generation, they are no longer human.
No, that's not what I said at all.
They're no longer the same species. You have to look at them and say, you're not our species. Yeah. That's what you have to say.
So just for the audience to just realize how batshit banally crazy what JimBob is saying. What you would need to do, and the reason why Drosophila has changed species is because they only live 24 hours. Their life cycle is just a day. So we can do thousands and thousands of days, right? Over the course of 5 years, I believe one of the experiments was. So you can imagine how many generations that is. The idea that something natural would target only black people. This is the craziness of this hypothetical. Something natural would target black people. It would target just their ability to reproduce and not go to white people, even though we're the same species. So whatever it is would affect us as well.
Really?
It would only target them. And then like they would be, a few generations and suddenly they wouldn't be able, like this is madness.
Mark,
Excuse me, I'm talking. Hey, shut up. Shut up. Shush. Like, so what we're talking about is a mad hypothetical, some point in the distance of what? tens of thousands of years that Jim Bob has no idea about because he doesn't know how biology works. So he doesn't know that you need thousands of generations in order to do this, and wants to say, well, what if that happened tomorrow? Yeah, I'll take my chances, Jim Bob, and it's a very weird hypothetical that you don't understand coming up because you don't understand biology. But
Okay, let me
so
talk.
Weird. If at ages in the future we became genetically dissimilar, then how would this?
Mark,
let's wait for it, Jim Bob. Let's wait 10,000 years and see if it happens, mate. Let's do it.
Mark, it doesn't matter how much time. It's called a logical entailment. So, Mark, this is the problem with your view. Isn't it true that, let's say, people of color are peculiar?
Why are you obsessed with this? Why are you obsessed with this?
Don't interrupt.
Stop.
Look.
You're a racist, man. Let it go.
Sarah, what the fuck?
Seriously, both of you.
Stop being partial and stop him from talking.
This guy's just dog whistling. He's dog whistling is what he's doing. I'm not. He's dog whistling.
All night. All right.
Let me say my
Jim
thing.
Bob, here's what we're going to do. Jim Bob, you're going to say your thing. Mark, you're going to say your thing, and then everybody's going to stop, and we're going to go into closing statements.
Yeah, I'd like to, because this guy's just dog whistling like crazy.
Shut your mouth, old lady.
Racist.
Jim Bob, get to your thing.
Shut up, SpongeBob. Go back to the bottom of the sea, SpongeBob. Go on. Off you go. On your bike. On your friggin' bike.
What? That's not even creative, bro. So
that's not even creative, bro.
Okay, let me know when I can talk, Sarah.
SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob
Bubble
SquarePants.
in your mouth. Hold it. Jim Bob, go ahead.
Okay. So there are actual diseases that target specific ethnicities. If I use the case of people of color, doesn't make me a racist to actually define that there are certain diseases like sickle cell, right? Genetic blood disorders, hypertension, stroke, certain cancers, prostate, colon cancer, conditions as uterine fibroids. Okay, all of these things are biological, right? They're determined. If it's the case, Mark, that through natural means, no artificial introduction, through natural means, these things like sickle cell, if there was some weird way, hypothetically, that any of these conditions produced a scenario where these people and their offspring couldn't reproduce with the rest of the population, you, Mark, would have to call them a different species. It's actually you who would be the racist, not me, because my view of human beings isn't based on pure biology. Yours is, Mark. You're the racist. You're the one who has to call George Floyd an ape, not me. So if it's the case that a certain genetic disposition or disease could hypothetically lead to the inability to reproduce among a population, it's actually you turd, who has to tell
Sarah, no.
Shut up.
Sarah.
Shut
up.
No,
shut the fuck up, man. You are not just throwing insults out. You are not just throwing insults out. No, you shut up, man. Like, seriously, that is just bullshit.
You got ended.
Fucking redneck bogan. You bogan. Go away. Look, okay, so now I get my say. He is just dog whistling.
Oh, that's enough. He interrupted me.
He is a racist prick that cannot hold off of other races. Now, don't forget, this idiot is sitting there going, oh, he's just storytelling. He's just storytelling. And then he does a hypothetical, thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe millions of years in the future, where his hypothetical disease targets only reproduction and people split off, that we wouldn't combat it. We wouldn't actually have any solutions for it, that it would automatically happen. I mean, talk about grasping at straws so hard that you break your fingers. He has nothing. He's got nothing in response to my evidence. He's got nothing in response to the explanations of evolution. All he can do is dream up like ridiculous scenarios. And yes, what would happen, and I'll explain what would happen, because Jim Bob doesn't understand biology. He doesn't understand like reproduction. He doesn't understand anything about anything, because he's a racist redneck bogan who can't even put an argument forth if his life depended on it. Now, basically what would happen is we would be Homo sapiens something, and then Homo sapiens something else. If that wild-eyed idea did happen millions of years in the future, and we couldn't do anything about it, which we would be able to, but this is what Jim Bob has to rely on. Oh, we've got to somehow watch out for the flying saucers and the flat earth and the
What?
God particles coming down and changing things. Look, get
Flat
back
Earth?
to me with solid science, some solid explanations, some solid evidence, and then I'll talk to you. But all we've heard today from this moron is just, nah. What have you got? Nothing. Nothing besides your Philbro crap and your, where did that come from? That's it. And I've explained all of it, and you still can't understand, which leads me to believe that you never took a biology class in your life. Did you, Jim Bob? You never took one, did you?
And I still wrecked you. Isn't that
All
weird?
right, both of you.
You failed completely.
Jim Bob, let's go ahead and move to our closing statements. If you have any issues with interruptions for closing statements, please mute yourself while the other person is talking. Jim Bob, go ahead with your closing statement, please.
Well, first of all, someone who tries to separate philosophy from science obviously hasn't done a basic philosophy of science course. You actually have to do philosophy to produce experiments and to engage with the scientific method altogether. So I don't know why it's an own philo bro. The problem here is you can rewatch this and actually point out all the times that I produced a contradiction with Mark, but also challenged him based on his own positive claim that, let's say, random mutation produces hyperspecific functional mechanisms like a liver. And when I ask him, how does this produce? He says, well, we had a liver before that. And I say, how do you have a liver before that? He says, well, we have other things, showing that they have an endless regress position. They have to grant themselves a population. They have to grant themselves a variety of animals. But the problem is everyone gets stuck on, like, where did humans come from? Did they come from this other thing? But you guys should actually get hyper specific, because it produces the spurgery that you just saw tonight. The hyper specific questions force people like Mark into telling stories about what happened a long time ago. When we get them to admit that the liver is hyper specific and produces a system that can filter toxins and facilitate the exiting of those toxins from the body, you actually already have to have a body. Well, from the evolutionary view, having a body is a phenomenon that evolution would have to account for. Populations is what something evolution would have to, through its mechanism, have to explain how populations arise, how they mechanically arise from a mechanism. No evolution proponent can argue for evolution unless they grant themselves first the phenomenon of populations and diversity. And as soon as that phenomenon is brought into question, they spurg out, right? Now, I'd also like to point out that Mark does believe that George Floyd is an ape. And if he's an ape, then the guy who kneeled on his neck is also an ape, and that's just ape behavior. So there is actually a philosophical, metaethical entailment of Mark's view, which we didn't get into, which is fine. The debate is whether or not evolution is true. All I got from Mark is assertions that it's true. How do you know it's true? Well, we know it's true because it's true and we observed it. How did you observe it? Every time I asked him what he observed and how he determined, notice how the word how freaks these people out. They don't even know what to say. When you say, how did you determine that? They just go back to asserting that it's the case. Now, the killer here tonight was that last part, which I'm fairly proud of. A redneck looking person like me with a cutoff flannel, absolutely wrecking this shiny, polished turd called Mark Reid. In the simple rhetorical method of just saying, listen, if you say speciation occurs, you have to concede that if there was a moment in time where the diseases in a certain ethnic group, right, cause the inability to procreate with its previous generation, Mark, not Jim Bob. I know I have the name of a racist, but I'm not. Mark actually has to say that they're a different species, not me. That's not my paradigm. That's why you saw that vicious reaction at the end. He literally lost his mind because he had to confront the entailment of his view that if it is the case that all it takes for something to be a different species is not being able to reproduce, it doesn't matter if it happens tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it happens in a million years. The reality is, if Mark was alive, he would actually have to say, you, Patrick Ewing, are not my species, right? So that's hilarious. That's like really funny rhetoric that works every time with these types because they're so pious in their progressivism, right? Where they just get shut down so easily philosophically. I'll how much time do I have, Sarah?
Yeah, the same time. And is that out? Yeah, I mean, reasonably.
Just finish
yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess looking back, we didn't even get into some other things like whether or not science could even run itself through the scientific method, which it cannot. There's no observation in evolution. He would start with changes in allele frequency. That's an observation. He also assumes that that's the cause. How interesting that someone who holds so dearly to science, as Mark does, to say the observation is the same thing as the cause. That's anti-science. That's pseudoscience. This redneck actually holds to a pure scientific approach, which is it's not a scientific theory unless it has an experiment. There is no experiments from Mark's view. When he talks about flies, notice how the flies still remain flies. Notice how he talks about bacteria. It's still bacteria, right? He had no arguments. When he's pressed, and I advocate anybody listening who's even passionately or just moderately against evolution, go granular on these people. Go to the mechanism. Don't talk about these lofty tales. Say, how is it that random mutation produces a functioning liver and a heart and these other things simultaneously inside an organism that's also changing? Also, all of it's changing. So with that, I mean, I'm open to any one of these people debating me on evolution. It always goes the same way. You press them on the granular aspect of evolution, which biology deals with, granular mechanisms. How does something happen? And all you get in return, insults, right? Well poisoning, right? It's actually Mark who's the racist, not me. Not me. It's actually worse than racism. His view holds that they're not even the same race anymore. They're actually a totally different species, so long as something's introduced that stops them from being able to reproduce. Right? That's all it takes for a new species. We didn't even get to the problem philosophically of a species not even being an objective term in evolution. Species is used in a time frame. It's a useful term to point at something that can reproduce within in its own population, isolated. But if you look at it from the perspective of deep time, which evolution holds, all of those categories actually dissipate. There's no line at which one thing becomes the other. Mark couldn't tell me. Can't tell me when. He can't tell me when anything happened. How long does it take for a heart to develop? I don't know. How does a liver develop? I don't know. How do populations develop? I don't know. They do it, though. You're just a denier. Nuh-uh. No. This was a demonstration, not of me, nuh-uh. This was a full demonstration of Mark, uh-huh. That's a projection, and all of these people do the same thing. They just you, and then they project that you're saying nuh-uh, as if my questions aren't pertinent to the claims that he's making. I'll finish with this. If someone makes a positive claim, such as evolution is true, the opponent doesn't need to produce an alternative explanation for the things he's assuming. He has to defend to the death his view from cross-examination. I could be totally ineffectual. I could hold no position. I could be a learner. I could just be a learner and be like, tell me about this. Tell me about this. And he's all, if Mark was teaching an 8-year-old about evolution, he was like, yeah, but how does natural selection produce a heart? And Mark's all, you're just nuh-ahing. You're racist. It shows the stupidity of these people. They're actually dumb. They're actually dumb. With that, I can see the rest of my time, and I declare myself the victor.
Thank you, Jim Bob. Hit the mute button. Mark Reid, over to you for your closing statement, please.
Okay, so that was the weirdest conclusion I have ever seen in my entire life. Like somebody sitting there and basically ranting about how great they are and how they've won. Look, one thing I've learned in debates, everybody, is that when somebody has to tell themselves that they demolished, that they did fantastic, that they've done everything. Look, the empty can rattles the most. And what we saw from Jim Bob is an inability to even understand the subject that he is talking talking about? I actually explained all of the mechanisms. He said, oh, he just talked about this story, not any of the mechanisms. I went in great detail of the mechanisms, tried to guide him through it. He even gave an example himself with the possum surviving that know what to do with the toad. He gave the example himself. So I went very in deep into the mechanisms and went through all of these mechanisms. Now he's trying to say, well, microevolution is a thing, but macroevolution isn't. Well, it's all the same thing. It's all evolution. It's basically saying, hey, you can measure an inch, but you can't measure a yard. We've never seen, because we've only got this amount of distance, you can't measure to another planet. I don't know if he's a flat earther, probably. I have no idea, but maybe he thinks that, maybe he doesn't. But yeah, based upon the inferences that we make over short term, we can make inferences to the long term. He didn't address how endogenous retroviruses actually got in there. And if you understand the subject, which JimBob obviously doesn't, there is no other way for this to happen. It is really problematic for the creationists to acknowledge, which is why JimBob just sits there and goes, no, I don't have to believe it. At certain points, we caught him out. He said, that can't happen. And then he wanted to say, no, I didn't say can't. I didn't say can't. I didn't say can't, because he doesn't want to take an affirmative position. This is something that flat earthers do all the time. I'm not a flat earther. I am a globe skeptic. And that's exactly what JimBob's doing today. And young earth creationism, by the way, has just as much evidence for it as flat earth. They are about on the same level. And it doesn't surprise me that Jim Blob is a flurfer and a yerfer, a young earth creationist. So we went through a lot of ranting there about my character and all kinds of things that you would expect when, someone who needs to say that they demolished and they did really well in order to feel good about himself has to, make up reasons why he didn't absolutely fail in a debate. It's because I've given data, evidence, right? I've given the evidence that we have, explained it all, and JimBob, it's in his interest to just not listen, not understand it. He just wants to wave it all away. He didn't explain why it's wrong. He didn't even understand that viruses could be transmitted from person to person. Like, he doesn't even understand germ theory, much less evolution. This man has no understanding of biology whatsoever and just wants to pretend that, it can't happen. But I'm not going to say it can't happen, because then I've got to actually show it can't happen. So I'm just going to say, hey, I'm doubtful. Well, I don't care. That doesn't matter. Whether it happens or not doesn't ride on whether JimBob believes it or not. It's an argument from incredulity. That is a logical fallacy, basically, where you say, I don't see how it could have happened, so therefore it didn't. And JimBob's been doing that all night. I don't see how a midgut could evolve to a liver, so therefore it didn't happen. That is a logical fallacy he's used all night. And I have given positive evidence of how it did and how we know it did. And like really positive evidence. He didn't even touch chromosome 2, didn't want to go anywhere near it. He wanted to go, it's now philosophy. Yeah, science does take some philosophy, but you don't go back when you're looking at the science to, is science philosophical? No, that's not what you do. It is a dodge from JimBob, because he's got literally nothing to present. He's got nothing. There were no contradictions. The contradictions that he made up were straw men. He would straw man my position like, George Floyd is of this. Everybody is part of the hominidae family, which is the family of apes. Everybody, you, me, everybody on earth. There is no trait that you have that does not fall into the hominidae family of animals. That is simply the explanation. So, this straw man and the dog whistling, like seriously, like you're talking about a hypothetical at some point millions of years into the future. Like, talk about your story time. Like, this is something that I don't think will happen in our lifetimes. I don't think it'll happen 100 lifetimes. I don't know if it will. It's quite likely it won't. I mean, talk about a slippery slope argument here. At some point in the future, because people get disease, there's going to be a speciation event. I don't know that. He's the one making this crap up. I don't know. But, he wants to call me racist because of that, because of the simple way that we use cladistics to, organize species. Well, guess what? Just because JimBob doesn't like it doesn't mean it's not true, right? If you're saying, hey, this is bad because if speciation happens, we're going to have to, that doesn't make it not true. None of the things that JimBob has said has made it not true. He hasn't given any counters whatsoever. He's just said, well, I'm incredulous. I don't believe it. That's not evidence. That is not even an argument. That is a logical fallacy called an argument from incredulity, which means that you go, somebody said, hey, I bought a Porsche the other day, and you're going, well, I can't believe that. That doesn't make it true or not true. You need other evidence. But when all you've presented is, I don't believe it, that is not any kind of reason to believe or, more importantly, disbelieve anything. And yes, species, there is a lot of crossover between them, which is exactly what we'd expect if everything was related. That's the problem they have, that everything flows into one another. If you have, say, for instance, one of the models is created orchard, it's a trees of lines, because everybody knows that organisms change. That's irrefutable. We do that with dogs. We do that with everything. If you do that, we shouldn't see any crossover. We should see these clear species, but we don't get that. And JimBob knows that. We don't get it. He's actually doing points for the evolution side that, hey, it all becomes muddy because we're all descended from the same lineage kind of thing. That's, and he claimed projection kind of thing. No, absolutely not. No, that this is ridiculous. He is a science denier. That's what he is. We have clear science. He refuses to read it, refuses to learn anything. He basically is like a guy that refuses to read the material and then go, no, I know it's not true. I mean, how ignorant is that? You haven't even bothered to look at it and you say it's untrue. It would be like me not even reading the Bible and saying, well, I know God isn't real because, it just isn't, because I don't believe it. That isn't an argument. It isn't even doing your homework. It's basically just denial. That's just incredulity. It's nothing. And that's all we've heard this time. Even as I've guided him through all the mechanisms we see, he just wants to go, nah. And I didn't just say, I went through all the mechanisms, which of course he's trying to say that I didn't, but I did. I spent some time going through all of them. And he says, oh, you didn't go back far enough. It's like I went back to a proto-gut and a proto-lung and proto-heart. And it's just like, well, you just want to dodge the subject is what he wants to do. Never actually dealt with retroviruses, never dealt with chromosome 2 fusion, just nah, because I'm incredulous. And I'll give in the rest of my time. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Mark. I think if the two of you ever decide by the grace of God to do this again, we're using a timer.
I would
that's
like
going
that,
to be
yeah.
the end of that. Yes, we're not doing this anymore. I hate both of you so much right now. Okay. We're going to go. I have officially dropped the link for open panel. People can start shuffling backstage if they want to do open panel dumpster fire. In the meantime, we're going to read and respond to some super chats. Again, JimBob and Mark, you were not obligated to stay for open panel, but you are most welcome to. Coming in with the Big 10 on JimBob's side says, shut up, Mark.
Truth is inconvenient. Yeah.
I think that was like before we even got started too.
Oh, probably. That's all that JimBob's got. That is,
If evolution's true, there's actually no truth. That's a different debate, actually.
That's a appeal to consequences. You're basically saying if this is true, I don't like the entailments. I didn't ask you how you felt.
I didn't say anything about liking. I said
nothing
nothing about liking.
All right. Tegooch over on JimBob's side says, for the grift, not one step back. Let's go. JimBob is about to destroy Jake's uncle.
That I did.
That's fair.
I keep telling yourself that. I'm sure you believe it.
I don't need to tell myself, bro.
Boy.
Obviously you do. Obviously you do.
I like to.
You're going to kill me.
You like to. Yeah.
You're so mad, dude. You're so mad.
Oh, no. I think it's hilarious.
You're so mad you lost.
Like not going out on a Friday night, right? Like, what am I missing? A bar brawl, right? On a Friday night, but really it's right here. When JimBob shows up, when he's got his drink in hand, we know it's going to be a bar brawl. It's just, I can spend on my Friday nights here with the two of you instead. Jester all
Friday night for me, just saying.
Oh, that's right. It's Saturday morning for you. Jester all with the Big 10, a drinking game edition, beer only. Fair enough. Thumping Weevil with the Big 10 to say, hey, Sarah, thank you so much. Tegooch over on JimBob's side. JimBob, show no mercy. No Mr. Nice Bob. Blood sport debate inbound. Not one step back.
I just want to say, like, I never agreed to blood sport debates, and I think they're kind of, you know, the answer that creationists have to actually getting thrashed in the intellectual discourse is to basically go, well, I'm going to be a tool. That's basically the entire thing.
What? Who said anything about creationists, Mark?
Well, we were on the blood sport thought.
I'm just mentioning them. That's all.
Saying is he's just saying that he likes to have the.
Oh, it's a tactic. It's a tactic, is what it is. You know, and particularly dishonest one at that. Sure.
Do you need to change your panties?
Who said that?
Do you?
I said it was dishonest. I didn't say I was scared of it.
You can go change your panties if you want.
All right. JC Cassell says,
Seriously?
what a waste of an opening. Jesus, Lord, the two of you. Now, you know what, though? Here's what I will say. If the two of you had like a good, solid debate without any of this stuff in it, then this would be the fun part.
JimBob can't do that. JimBob's
Why would we do that?
He's got no self-control. He's got no self-control. He can't help himself. That's how
I evolved to do.
That's how feeble a man he is. He can't.
I evolved to. I evolved to dominate you.
He's got no self-control because
Mark,
he's a feeble and weak and flaccid man. That's why.
I evolved to, and I have more
You're
kids
flaccid,
than you.
man. I don't listen to flaccid men.
I reproduce more than you. I'm evolutionarily superior to you.
You reproduce more than me.
I'm evolutionarily superior to you.
Really?
Isn't that true? Isn't that true?
I need a bouncer.
No.
If I reproduce more than you, am I evolutionarily superior to you?
No.
Why not?
Because my genes can be passed on in other ways. It's all
really?
about population.
Oh, your genes are passed down. So you don't have any kids, but I have.
You're
three?
a dumbass. You don't understand biology. You don't. Hey, why is he bringing? Like, I'm not allowed to bring his kids into it. Why is he bringing it into it?
I'm just saying. Oh, you're so mad, dude.
Oh, so you're allowed to pick on my life. So can I talk about his kids now? Can I?
I'm just genetically superior, bro.
Can I talk about his kids now? He brought them up. He opened the door.
I didn't talk
he
about
opened the door. He opened the door.
I didn't say particulars.
You talked about my life now, so you're the scumbag.
What? No, I'm not.
You're
just
a scumbag. You brought up my life.
From the evolutionary view.
No, you brought up my life, you piece of crap. You're a piece of crap.
Why don't you
just brought
harder?
up my life.
Oh,
why don't you cry harder? Should I talk about your kids? Should I talk about your kids?
Go ahead.
You brought them up.
Enough.
Go ahead. They exist and yours don't.
You're a piece of shit because you just violated the rules of the debate.
Your lineage is going to die and mine's going to survive.
JimBob, enough. How long Nate
He's
said,
so mad. He's so angry.
No, I'm happy. I'm evolutionarily superior. I'm happy.
Are
you
we
think
done?
so?
Are we done?
By your standard.
Done?
I don't know.
Both of
Is
you?
JimBob done? Because he's just being like
I'm
I
an
thought
emo
we had
king.
rules to this debate.
Let's do this. Let's do this. Both of you. I'm over it. Stop it. Thank you. How long Nate says, okay, one more so I can say I asked. Would both reply? This question is for both of you. Could it be that the shared proteins among all living organisms be explained by the mineral building blocks available and not shared lineage?
You want to go first, JimBob?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't. Let me kind of read that again. Okay, one more, so I can both reply. Could it be that shared proteins among all living organisms can be explained by the mineral building blocks available, but not shared lineage? Well, I mean, the question itself, and maybe Mark would agree with this, is that shared proteins, structures, if you will, or shared material among different things, doesn't really get us to how it is they got to share those things. Those are two different questions. So the explanation of how things are similar is the question itself. So I'm not sure you're not positing a new position necessarily. You're just saying things are built of the same things. And Mark's saying, yes, things are built of the same things, but they're built of the same things because there's a mechanism that carries over those similarities. Mark, you could answer if you like.
Okay, so the proteins that get expressed are basically are determined by the coding of the DNA. So there is cytosine, thymine, adenosine, and what's the last one? Guanine. Sorry. So the building blocks are those proteins, right? So they're the ones that express, like they're the basic building blocks. And it isn't so much what they are, it is the order that they come in. So new information is any new order of those basic building blocks. So yeah, the basic building blocks are the same for everyone, but how they are expressed and what proteins are created is largely up to the order that they're in. And, you know, it has to be that, like, we have seen it so often. Maybe I don't have absolute knowledge like JimBob wants, but we see that being passed down from, you know, mother and father to daughter through the recombination process, which is where the chromosomes overlap and they share genes with each other. So we know that there has to be, even everybody knows that if you breed two dogs with certain traits, you will get expressions of those traits. Everyone knows this. So no, it's not to do with the mineral building blocks available. It's to do with what expressions of those proteins are in the DNA sequence of the parents.
Okay.
I would add to that, he mentioned the word information. Information is actually metaphysical, not a biological term. To say information is to say there's some sort of intention or coding, which presumes encoding and decoding, that there's some sort of meaning behind genetic information that informs some sort of behavior. That, like, if information is useful, that means there's a direction for the information to be useful. So that means that there's a function to the information. So it's actually informing the biology of how to operate, which assumes some sort of purpose. But under Mark's view, evolution can't actually justify purpose. They just grant themselves purpose.
Okay.
No, information isn't necessarily like that. Like from a pulsar, we can get information about the star from the pulsing of the pulsar, but nobody's sort of saying, hey, that's somehow somebody's trying to relay us useful information, like the star has a mind of some sort. No, that's not the case. So just information, like he's actually misrepresenting it to be data, which is information used for a purpose. So no, information doesn't necessarily need to have something generating it with a purpose. No. This is just a chemical process.
No, information is data plus semantics. So the meaning of information. So even if there's no mind interpreting the information, you use the term itself. But the problem, Mark, with your view is you're analyzing biology, which is material, but information is not material. So you have a big metaphysical problem here.
No, we don't.
Yeah,
not at all.
Is information
it's not information like you'd find on a computer. It is simply a chemical reaction. That's all it is. It is biological. It's a chemical reaction. The fact that it's supposed to be there under some sort of, you know, coding, encoding, it's not like a computer code. It's not like that. It's more like natural instruction sets that will chemically react to one another naturally. It's not this idea that you've got that it's written down. No, that's not what it's like.
Instructions. Direction.
Okay. This one is for you, Mark. How can Mark or the science rely on viruses as an explanation for the evolution of living beings if viruses themselves aren't considered living?
Yeah, so we don't rely on them as an explanation. We're basically pointing them out as how they got there. Yeah, there is debate about that, whether they're considered living or non-living, because in the usual classification, they don't have all the traits of a living organism would, but they do replicate themselves. And you know, we've seen this so many times. They replicate themselves into the cell. At that point, that cell is still living. There's nothing not living about the cell, even though it has a segment of viral DNA in it. Like, for instance, if you get infected by some kind of retroviral element, say HIV, the cells will still be living. They just will have a segment of viral DNA in their code.
Yeah, I'll add to that, but appealing to the viruses already grants yourself, like I demonstrated in the debate, population. So something getting transferred from one organism to another, or even an entire population to another, is meaningless in the realm of evolution, because you have to already grant yourself that there's populations of animals. Now, I want to make it very clear, when you ask a proponent of evolution like Mark, I did tonight, how does evolution actually give you the virus and the population, right? He just grants himself like a magic trick. He starts the episode of the show mid-season. And the counter tonight, I go, how did you get to season 12, Mark? And he goes, you're just saying nar. You're just saying nah. No, I'm asking you, how did we get to season 12? He doesn't have an answer.
Okay, so Jim Bob's just dodging and basically going to another subject, which is abiogenesis, or far back enough that you can muddy the water. I've explained how viruses have gotten there, what their limits are. He doesn't understand the first thing about them, so he has no idea. And he's just basically saying, well, I don't want to discuss this, so I'm going to go back as far as I can, and hopefully there won't be an explanation. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to dodge. I'm just going to dodge to something else. Oh, abiogenesis, that's an interesting topic. Let's dodge there. So as you noticed, he never actually addressed anything to do with the like what we have observed directly, which is retroviruses inserting themselves into organisms, and a germline being infected with a retrovirus and that being reproduced throughout.
See how he granted himself organisms?
He hasn't actually done that. All he wants to do is just go, well, I don't want to grant him any populations, like they don't exist. Like, it's
why would
really,
I grant
really
you
weird.
populations?
He's a
bro?
weirdo.
Why would I grant you populations?
All right, Schweitz comes in with the bananas for a whole $20. Brian says, even a dog knows the difference between being kicked and being stumbled over. Oliver Wendell Holmes, The Common Law. Tigooch says, how does it feel debating a thumb? That thumb joke, though, it kind of rolls for a while. Schweitz says, truth is truth and everything is everything. And I have a billion years removed banana cousin. Fair enough.
Well, fun fact, I just want to say something quickly for that. Like, this guy Ray Comfort tried to use the banana as evidence that evolution wasn't true because it was so perfect, it was so good, and so useful. And as it turns out, we naturally selected that. Yes, that used to be plantains that it came from. Like a lot of organisms, we selected them just like natural selection works, but instead we're doing it to be completely different.
Fair. Well, Emmanuel says, should I address Jim Bob's arguments? Nar. Tay Gooch says, please ask Jake Rattlesnake's uncle, how did dinosaurs have sex? For the grift, not one step back. Okay. How did dinosaurs have sex?
Depends on the dinosaur. But do you know they laid eggs, right? Like they had eggs. So I think this is hilarious because there was somebody who got plastic toy dinosaurs and went, look, they could never have sex. It's like saying, well, elephants can't. Like, are you really serious right now? Like, you do know elephants do, and rhinos do, and other very big animals do. Like, go check it out. It's probably about the same.
Fair enough. Craig says, my random receptors are picking up some particular nonsense. Thumping Weevil says, mutation and evolution are not the same. You cannot stand by a virus theory to fight an evolution argument.
Yep.
Mutation is just one mechanism. Viruses are another. No one's saying they are the same. Nobody's saying that. Evolution is it's a fact that things evolve, alleles change over time. It's also a theory, and he disagrees with the theory, not the fact that things change over time. Everybody knows that. The viruses and retroviruses and endosymbiosis, and there's a ton of mechanisms behind it, because guess what? Biology and genetics is incredibly complicated. Only one of us has actually read it here.
It's so complicated you can't explain it, and a dumb hick like me in a cutoff flannel.
No, you just don't want to understand it, Jim Bob. You don't want to understand it. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, mate. Like, it's funny that the worse somebody does in a debate, the more they got to yell how great they did. It's funny.
That's actually not always
funny.
True. No.
It is. Yeah.
No, that's actually
like,
not
because when I do well in a debate like today, I don't have to tell anybody. I just know that I have.
Is it logically possible for someone to wreck someone and celebrate that they wreck someone? Is that logically possible? Yes. Then you're wrong.
But I know that's what you're doing. Yeah, no, you keep patting yourself on the
back. That was so easy to refute. That's how good.
Are logically possible things always the case?
No, I didn't say it. But
there you go. Okay, fantastic. I pat myself on the back. Congratulations, Jim Bob.
Okay,
you've just debunked yourself.
So
Congratulations.
you think you won this?
Well done, Captain Logic. There you go.
You think you won this debate, Mark?
I think I did well. Yeah.
Did you think you won?
I think I did well.
Did you think you won the debate?
I don't judge that. I let other people judge who won the debate. I think I did well. That is all. Unlike you, I don't need approval from other people to be able to survive in this world. I can say, hey, I think I did well, and that's enough for me. You have to go, everyone's got to know that I won. I better tell them. I better say it over and over. It is so fragile of you. Like, seriously,
it's affecting you quite well. It's affecting you a lot.
It's really not. I just find it hilarious. I laugh every time I see you do it. It's great.
So George Floyd was an ape, right?
Put your dicks away. I'm over it. Anthony says Mark evolved to get sunburnt really quick. Rachel Wilson says the opposite of random would be intentional. How can anything in nature be intentional if there's no designer? Also,
no,
I'm not
that's
interested.
not true.
Is not an
the opposite of random is deterministic, not intentional. Maybe learn that.
There's no, you can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. That's right, Jim Bob. Yeah, just cut that one off.
No. I was gonna save time. I was gonna save time. But if you must, random, you can't observe randomness. You don't have a criteria.
Random in biology is just a subset for when we don't know because the deterministic factors are going to be so large that we cannot possibly know them. So it is just a shorthand. It's used in a different way to say,
I understand. But you agree, Mark, but you agree there's no observation of random. We don't know what random is, right?
I think we know what pseudo-random is. I think we can say, hey, something is random when it is.
That's like a pseudo answer. Yeah. So can you just answer a direct question? I'm not going to celebrate as a win. I just want to. I want to know from you, Mark. No, gotcha. So I swear. I promise.
We think
if you agree that there's no random.
Okay, so we think there is a random process in the decay of radioactive materials that we know how much will decay, but it seems to be random which one will decay. So yeah, we may have observed a completely random based upon quantum fields and their fluctuations seems to be random. Yes, that could be completely random.
Well, I'm asking you a direct question. We don't know.
I answered your direct question.
No. So it could be isn't what I asked. I asked, there's no criteria, objectively for determining something's actually truly random.
Well, when in biology we say mutation is random, it is just so beyond our understanding of knowing the factors that go in. We just call it random. You're just splitting hairs and being a Filbro right now. That's basically what you're doing.
I'm being rigorous, Mark. I'm saying you're only using random as a colloquialism, correct? Just say yes.
So your thing, well, yeah. No.
Thank you. That was easy.
It's a technical term in biology, meaning that it is a mass of factors that we cannot possibly determine. That is what it means. So yeah, I am using technical language. I realize you haven't read a book. But, I really am trying to explain to you how we're using that language. Now, are you mad? Are you mad, bro?
No, it's just so
panties in
bro.
a twist?
No.
You got panties in a twist? Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, dear. Oh, watch out.
No.
Jim Bob's sensitive. Really... Please give us
Jim Bob rulers away. Justin says flipping a coin isn't random. Dunce. It literally follows. Baby? Physics the whole time. You even flip it intentionally, not randomly. Shave your tummy, Mark.
No. You don't. There's no intentionality to it. Like when you're talking about random stuff, you're basically just saying it's impossible for humans to determine. That's all. Like, so intentional or not, like the way that a rock falls down on an avalanche is said to be random because we cannot possibly determine all of the physics into finding out which way it falls.
Rock, how is it? Okay, then how is your brain coming to conclusions and reasoning different than the rock falling then?
How is it different?
Yeah, because you said if a rock falls, we can't truly gain all of the variables, right, of what determines it. We just kind of go, well, it seems like it's doing it randomly. But from a purely naturalistic view, how would the rock falling be different than your own reasoning?
Well, I think this is way outside of the debate, to be honest with you.
We're done with the debate.
It is a case of, and I'm not going into another one. Like you can go and talk about it with
you'd be in trouble with me on that one.
So just quickly, I think that it is a process where sometimes neuroplasticity throws up random things, and then we make a selection from our consciousness over which of these things can actually happen. That could be the case. I don't know for sure. how exactly the cognitive process works. I don't think anybody knows for sure exactly how the cognitive process works. That's the problem.
Well, all I really want to know is it possible, or does it make sense from your view that your own
I'm not
reasoning
going into another debate,
random?
Sarah. This is going to take
Dude,
forever.
I'm just asking a basic question, man.
Is my reasoning random?
Random from your view? Yeah, I just want to
know.
know.
If I'm selecting it from my consciousness in a feedback loop, how can it be random?
What? No, the selecting. What if that's random? I'm asking.
Oh, that's random. Is that the case?
I'm asking you, do you believe your selection process is random?
No, I don't think that's random. No.
Okay.
All right. I hate all of you. Chef says, I honestly just want to see JimBob fight someone. These constant debate W's are getting hackneyed?
Hackneyed.
That's a word?
Hackneyed. Yeah, it means old and tired is basically what it means. Hackneyed. Like you have a hackneyed horse is one that's old and worn out, essentially.
Oh, thank you. I like that word. I'm going to start calling people hackneyed. Rachel says Mark should probably learn philosophy. He's a fallacy machine. Appeal to authority, appeal to consensus, appeal to
incredulity.
Thank you. Just to name a few, you must have a grasp of logic before you can do science.
No, Rachel, you should learn philosophy. Appeal to authority is when you appeal to some kind of authority that is not actually an expert in the field. When you appeal to a false authority, that is the correct name for it. We're not appealing to any one person in science. We're appealing to the method, which is the most reliable method of finding out anything. That's why we use it to find stuff out. Appeal to consensus. I'm not doing an appeal to consensus. It is not an appeal to how many people know something. It is simply an appeal to the methodology of science. Now, that involves consensus, but not wide consensus, so it doesn't fall under that. Appeal to incredulity. What am I incredulous about? JimBob hasn't given any model, so I'm not incredulous about anything. He's the one using the appeal to incredulity. So you are absolutely wrong, and you should learn some philosophy before you start to trot out fallacies that you don't understand.
Mark, I want to just point out two things. You did say during the debate that, quote, other Christians believe in evolution and accept the science. Is that, is that a fallacy or not?
That's not consensus, because not all
I just asked if it's a fallacy. Is it a fallacy?
No, what I'm pointing out is not.
It's not. Okay.
What I'm trying to point out with that is it's not based upon a rejection of any religion or any kind of religious bias. That is not it. Okay, that is not what it's based upon, because lots of people who believe in religion accept it too. So no, I'm not saying it's true because these Christians believe it. I'm saying I'm trying to avoid a poisoning of the well, that I'm somehow trying to dissuade Christians or in some way. It will be true no matter what. That is just the facts of the matter.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do, just for purposes of time right now. I'm going to move on to 20 and up, and then I'll get through the other 5s and 10s throughout open panel. Okay, everybody good with that? Clicker says, I've studied genetics and immunology. The only way I know for sure the viruses are inserted into human DNA is human intent using CRISPR. That's how it's done. Does Mark have the mechanism he can refer to in nature?
Yes. So viruses, retroviruses in particular, not DNA viruses or RNA viruses, retroviruses, which is a subsection of RNA viruses, they use an enzyme called integrase to make a cut in that DNA sequence that produces the long terminal repeats on either side, which is one of the reasons why we know it's there. It then uses reverse transcriptase to change its structure from RNA into DNA inside of that cell. And, you know, I'm not sure what you've studied or where you've studied, but, you know, that is really fundamental to retroviruses. So I'm not sure what you've seen there. But yes, that's the mechanisms.
Thank you. Craig says many arguments degrade to just needs time. Time is not a sufficient argument.
Yes, it is. If you observe, like, for instance, the Pluto's trajectory around the solar system, we know that it's going to go around the sun. We know that from the physics, from the science, we know that it is. But it's like saying, well, because it's, you know, you need to show it. And you're saying, well, it's going to take like thousands and thousands of years. And you go, oh, well, just in time's not an argument. Yeah, that's part of it. We just simply do not have the time for humans or long reproduction gestation periods and things to reproduce in order to study. We have to use short-term things because, we can't wait thousands and thousands of years. It's impractical. And that's just the reality of the situation. You can deny reality all you want, but that's just the reality of it.
Okay. Eli says, note for Mark Reid, virologists have proved nothing. Proof of contagion infection is contingent on first proving the existence of the culprit pathogen via pure isolation. This has never been done for any pathogen.
Okay, so we've got basically a germ theory of disease denier as well, which, I look, if you want to take it up with the scientists that they haven't found any pathogen, good luck. But, we know that, wasn't there a measles outbreak in the US just recently? If you're getting into the point where you're basically saying, well, I don't believe in pathogens, I don't know what to tell you.
Mark,
you need to go back to school.
Mark, just to be in good faith, you don't have to actually categorize them as a denier to answer to counter the claim, but you didn't counter the claim.
Well, you don't have to do the existence of the pathogen in pure isolation. We can see the effects through studying these pathogens, getting into the system, and then curing them, right? We cure them.
Yeah, but Mark, to be fair, wouldn't you need to isolate to know that the thing that you're calling the pathogen is actually causing the symptom?
So what happens is the symptoms arise. We isolate some kind of pathogen. We work out a solution, hopefully, based upon that pathogen, and we hopefully will cure that disease based upon the pathogen. I don't know what kind of world that you're living in where we go, well, we've just made this cure. We think it's this and this is what it'll do, but it's actually doing something altogether different that we don't know about. I don't know what fantasy world
that's happened. That happens before. That happened before. It's
happened on a rare occasion.
No. Like basic things like scurvy. We thought X was the cause of scurvy, and we actually found a cure for scurvy, but we were actually wrong about the cause of scurvy. So that's a perfect counterexample.
Well, that's a vitamin C deficiency.
No, it's not, actually. It turned out to be something much more particular. And actually, we thought that was the case because we were generalizing and it was consistent. So it was reasonable to say the lack of vitamin C, but it turns out it's actually something more myopic, so to speak, about the preservation and the freshness of not just fruits, but also meats. Something I forgot, forgive me, but it's like something, I think it's an enzyme thing. Now, is it related to, is vitamin C one of the things that you would intake? But it turned out it wasn't the case. So it got refined. So it just demonstrates that isolating the cause of something, just because you can find a solution to the symptoms, it doesn't follow that your cause was correct.
Well, I'm glad you brought up scurvy because that's actually genetic. We can't produce vitamin C like other animals can. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what else can't produce vitamin C for exactly the same reason?
What?
Other members of the family Hominidae. Other great apes cannot produce vitamin C either.
What about
for
fish?
The exact same genetic reason in the exact same location.
What about fish?
What about fish?
Didn't we come from fish too?
Yeah.
What about a banana?
What about a banana?
What about, are we related to a banana and an orange, Mark?
Are you more related to a chimpanzee than a banana?
Are we related to an orange?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Are we related to an orange?
So distantly through billions of years.
Does an orange produce vitamin C?
Yeah.
So you're arbitrarily picking something that's similar, but you argue in a distant past, a distant past, you just gradually make similarities and relatedness. And all you do as evolutionists is take a very selective time frame. Selective time frame right now, and you say, look at these similar effects and similar functions of these two different things. So you look at this, dude, similar things that do similar things, right? That's what you're drawing to the conclusion that we come from the thing that's similar. Yet, if you go back a little bit further, it's no longer true. the similarity, the thing you're using to conclude that we're similar, that we come from. All you have to do is go back a little bit of time, Mark, and it demonstrates that there is something we're related to that does produce vitamin C. So that's a shit argument, Mark.
Yeah, so it's also genetics why we're related. And, you know, sort of saying, hey, orange produces vitamin C when we split off them billions of years ago. It's just like, it is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard in my entire life. The whole idea is that there is a mutation which causes us not to, you know, produce vitamin C, but it doesn't matter because we did eat fruits and things. And then that was replicated over all of hominidae, including humans, including apes. But notice he never answered the question of why we actually have the same deficiency in the same genetic location. Didn't answer that at all.
Why would I have to? Why would I have to tell you?
An orange can produce vitamin C.
Why would
that was his answer?
Mark, if I was
I will rest my case.
Mark, why would I have to answer why if you're the one making the positive claim? Why would I have to answer? Excuse me? You didn't answer. Why would the opponent have to give an alternative? Why would I have to?
That's the flat earther defense. Like, why do I have
it's
to
logical.
explain the flat earth?
No, that's not flat
because
earth.
I am just a globalist
well
denier.
poisoning.
That's essentially the same thing that he's doing.
See how he well poisons?
Basically, I asked him a question, which was, why are they in the same place? And he said oranges have.
What if I said I don't? If I said I don't know, it wouldn't make evolution true, correct, Mark?
Correct, but you wouldn't have any answer to it at all.
No,
you
that
cannot explain why these things occur. And
that wouldn't make your claim true, Mark. You're a logical idiot.
It reinforces the conclusion that I have.
No, it doesn't.
I am presenting evidence.
It's irrelevant.
Evolution, and Jim Bob literally has nothing. But I don't know. But
Mark.
That is supporting my conclusion for this debate 100%. Jim Bob doesn't know. Can we just look and see that Jim Bob says, well, I don't know why all of these things line up and why all of your evidence is looking so much like evolution, but that is all he's got to say.
You need to learn basic philosophy and logic. There is nothing about the absence of an alternative explanation that actually buttresses a different explanation. They're not related in any way.
Well, yeah, but if you're looking for an explanation why these things are hooked up, you basically will say, hey, here's the evidence that we have, and here's how we know. And all of this evidence for it. Jim Bob doesn't want to say it can't because he doesn't want to actually give any evidence of his own. So when you are practicing epistemology and you have one side presenting with evidence and the other saying, well, I don't know why that thing is like that.
I didn't say that.
Nuh-uh. And then basically that means that if you're going to believe something, why not go with the evidence that people are presenting, especially when it's gone through such a thorough over hundreds of years, a thorough investigation. There's more papers on evolution than any other,
there's papers,
any other category of science.
So many papers equals it's true. Nice
I don't know what this anti-intellectualism is, but it does seem like poison.
There's many papers on on God existing. Does that mean it's true?
Really, scientific papers?
No, if there's many papers on evolution.
Are there scientific papers on God?
I just refuted you.
Let's move through the rest.
Are there scientific papers on God? Scientific paper? Can you send me one? Send me one, and I'll read it. Okay, Jim Bob, send me one. SpongeBob.
You're talking about
scientific
volume.
Paper on God.
You just appealed to volume.
No.
Yeah,
there can be billions of papers that are written on evolution if they haven't been peer reviewed and gone through the process. Like I was saying earlier, I'm not appealing to an authority. I'm appealing to the process of science because it gives us
needs to
results.
Dude. Processes need to be interpreted by an authority, Mark, you dipshit.
Are we done? All right.
I don't know what he's saying.
Processes need interpretation, dummy.
Yeah, so this guy's a science denier using a computer on the internet provided by science. He needs to hand his tech in. Engineering is the practical application of science.
You can engineer without the method of science. Engineering happened before.
Okay, let's say engineering is the practical science application of science. That's what
engineering can happen before the scientific method was discovered.
No.
Yes, it was, dude. What are you talking about? When was the scientific method established? What year?
What year?
Yeah.
The scientific methodology is the same observation and simply testing.
What century
was it? They had a basic scientific method before the modern scientific method. Therefore they had basic engineering before modern engineering.
What century was it?
As soon as people started testing their hypotheses. So all the way back in who was it? The guy that did the stick thing. He did an experiment to show that the Earth wasn't flat. It was a fantastic experiment. I can't remember what his name was. Give me a sec. I'll look it up. Eratosthenes. I remembered. So Eratosthenes was doing scientific experiments before they were called that.
Look, I didn't ask if whether people did scientific experiments before they knew it. We're talking about whether or not you can engineer and build something without doing a scientific experiment. And the answer is yes.
But when I say science, it also includes like primitive scientific methods. And dude, no, they didn't.
Mark, can I build a hut in whatever crazy ancient year you believe existed? Can I build a hut without doing the scientific method?
The modern scientific method, sure, but don't you think
any
you would
scientific
test?
method?
No, it's based upon what people have learnt about hut building.
Oh, really? So if I learn
look,
that
this has gone completely off topic. Like I'm not getting into your field, bro. I don't believe science,
bro. Every time he runs when he's in a corner.
Bro. Like, just keep saying bro. I'm sure it improves your case a lot. What I'm saying is that engineering now is the implementation of the scientific method. Do you think who creates computers? Who actually designs them?
Humans.
What kind of humans? Do you think scientists do?
Sure. You can apply science to engineering.
Sure. So your computer is a result of the modern scientific method. Would you agree with that?
Which scientific theory?
Computer science.
No, which scientific theory?
Oh, what, information theory?
No, that's information is not material and natural. It's not found in the natural world. You're out of your league, bro. There's no information in nature. You can't find information in nature, bro.
What? No, look, information theory is mathematic storage of information. What do you think computers are except storage and processing of information?
How does that have anything to do with whether or not it's built on some scientific theory? I'm just asking which scientific theory.
I'm saying computer scientists doing science in information theory, they produce your modern computers.
That's not natural science.
It's hilarious that you are a science denier and an absolute
what do I
Neanderthal science. That
you're just insulting.
You're denying evolution. It's a science. You are a science denier. You are literally a science denier.
Mark, can evolution be called a scientific theory if it doesn't go through the scientific method?
Yes, it is. It does go through the scientific method.
Really? What's the observation? What's the observation?
The observation is, for instance, the viruses that we have in multiple species and pairing them together, and the experiments run in the Lenski labs, and the experiments run all over the place. There's been tons of experiments. I can go through a ton of them.
Stop! What's the observation? Start there. One observation. One observation.
We see structures over multiple organisms that seem to have the same structure and the same placement in the genome, and seem to
stop. That's good. Similarities in structures in the same place in the genome.
Genetics. Yes.
That's the observation. What's the hypothesis? The assumed cause of that?
The hypothesis is that to be falsified is that they came from viral elements inserted there ages ago.
Okay, wait a second. What caused it, though?
You didn't ask that. That's not part of the science. That's the scientific method is finding out what caused it. Do we go? Oh, we observe this.
I'm done.
No. Listen to me.
My work is done. My work is done.
Do we observe this? Then the cause is this, right? We don't do that, JimBob. You're an idiot. You don't understand the scientific method.
Yeah, that's not science.
Right. That's the hypothesis.
Yeah, right. No, the hypothesis is.
Oh my God! You don't understand science.
Mark, look.
You don't understand science.
Mark, I'll walk it through you. Watch. The observation is similarities in genetics between two different things. Okay, great. That's an observation. The hypothesis is this is a phenomenon. I want to know what caused this phenomenon in nature.
That's not a hypothesis.
Really? What is a hypothesis then?
A hypothesis is a proposed explanation that you try to falsify. So saying what caused this is not a hypothesis.
What's the hypothesis?
You have to give something concrete. You have to say, my hypothesis is that it was caused by bacteria transferring it over.
You just said it's not what caused. You just said it's not what's causing it. Now you just said what's causing it. You're in a contradiction.
Okay. What
this is
Jim
done.
Bob
This is
doesn't
just move
understand-
on. This guy's
Jim
so
Bob
dumb.
doesn't understand. What Jim Bob doesn't understand is in science, when you do a hypothesis, you're basically proposing a cause that
That's
you
what I
then
just
try and
said!
falsify. But we're
I
not saying
literally
that's...
just said that.
Jim Bob, can you unbunch your panties for 1 second and listen?
I
We're not
literally
saying
just
we
said
know.
that.
We're not saying we know that is the cause. We're saying that is the proposal we want to try and falsify.
Is this
so
the
we
cause?
try to falsify it.
That's right, Mark. So when you say the similarities between two things, Mark, this is so simple.
Like
you
this
see
dumbass
Mark,
basically went,
Mark,
my hypothesis is what caused this and why did it happen?
So dumb.
I'm
the
over
question,
it.
Come on, Sarah. I have him in the corner. Why are you saving him? Why do you save him?
I gave you guys all this time.
She's saving
There's
one.
nothing
Why do you
of
save?
saving. There's no. I don't give a fuck about the argument, Jim Bob. What I care about is moving the show along. That's it. Tegooch says a goal. Derek comes in to say, take the phrase Mary had a little and begin to randomly change things. It is more likely that I will remove crucial information that already exists to create incoherency than it will be that I complete the sentence.
Yeah, so that basically, that's been done to show that, hey, if you have something selecting where the letters are actually useful to reaching something, obviously we don't have a goal that we're trying to reach, but purifying selection will keep some of the letters there. And that's what they're missing in that random thing, because it's not really just changing random letters. In a way it is, and some sentences will never get there. That's the selection. Some of them, if they keep the letters on the destination phrase, it will actually begin to turn out like that if you do it enough times. And that's basically what we're talking about here. So yeah, excellent example.
All right. Brady over on Jim Bob's side says, I still have yet to see how evolution goes through the scientific method. Tell Mark to evolve his arguments past assertions and post hoc coping. Really sad to see survival of the fittest in real time. Jim Bob is hunting his pig snake prey, eagle screech.
Yeah, so it absolutely does go to the scientific method. Like we basically have experiments in the Lenski labs where we giving different scenarios, trying to disprove things, and there is a lot of unknowns in it, sure. But one thing is certain, that evolution is a fact and a theory, and it's sort of just saying nah to it and it doesn't go through the scientific method is complete hokum. It's basically not understanding the scientific methods, which there are multiple and they vary a bit depending on the field, but they all have the same overall structure to them. And we do put stuff through that. Like, for instance, the Phoenix experiment, where we brought one of those viruses in the human body back to life, back to a virus. Like they changed it, brought it back. It's a virus. It just is.
Wow, that's deep. You should write a poetry book.
I will.
Jesus Lord.
It'll be called
Jeff
Jim
coming in to
Understand Biology, an opus to Jim Bob.
I'm gonna fucking scream. Jeff says the crash out was epic. Well done, sir.
You're welcome.
And let's see. Lamentations of Spurging atheist, to the victor goes the spoils.
Oh yeah, I think you've got bias there. I think I remember somebody like screaming incoherently into the mic just before. It's yeah, that's hard to see.
Fair enough. Jess says we was primordial soup.
No, that's an old hypothesis for abiogenesis. I don't think anybody really believes in primordial soup. I mean, it could be, but I think it's unlikely because we're not 100% sure. We've got something like 8 of the 12 steps to abiogenesis. I personally prefer, and just because I understand a lot of it and it solves a lot of the problems, amyloid world, which is completely different. It actually occurs on clay. So yeah, there's a number of hypotheses behind abiogenesis, but really importantly, abiogenesis isn't evolution. It isn't. So that's another topic entirely.
Okay. Hall says, Mark, what have we seen in the last 1,000 years of taxonomy. Well, yeah. That has proven microevolution in mammals.
Right. So microevolution is changes within a species as opposed to macro, which is changes outside a species. So, we've seen like dogs, for instance, is microevolution. It's changes within a species. So I don't think you mean that. And this is sort of the problem that people don't really understand biology and they're trying to critique evolution. It's macroevolution that you're talking about. And my example of multicellularity coming from single-celled, that is an example of macroevolution. It is a different species now. I'm really sorry if you don't believe that, but it is. So I don't know if evolution isn't single-celled organisms to multicellular organisms. I don't know what is. Like, seriously.
Mark, can you, for the audience, tell us the difference between what you call microevolution and adaptation?
Well, adaptation is epigenetics. It is basically genetics within you that adapt to varying environments. So if I go out in the sun, I have an adaptation that will produce more melanin that will darken my skin. It's within that same organism. Evolution is over multiple generations, so it changes over generations, which is not adaptation.
And are you take the position that the thing's epigenetics is informed by some other mechanism?
Sure.
So what is that mechanism? Also random mutation?
Sometimes. It can be other stuff. There's a lot of mechanisms. It can be sexual selection. It can be endosymbiosis. It can be. There's a ton of mechanisms that it could be. Sure.
So for example, if I put a little baby show cow in a freezer,
I wasn't aware this was question time for me. Can you just respond to it and not question me?
God, you're such a bitch. Go ahead.
The purpose of the super chats is to provoke further
comment
discussion.
on it.
Yeah.
Wait, but he's just asking me questions. Like, just answer the question yourself.
I want to ask you a question.
Well, I don't care. I don't care what you want.
Okay, bitchy boy.
Oh my God, I hate both of you so much.
Co-parter, buddy. Are you okay? Are you all right, Jimbob?
I'm fine.
You're hanging in there, buddy.
It's you who can't answer a question.
I should have taken another week
I
off.
just did. Sorry,
BG.
Sarah.
I just hate both of you so much. I specifically said, "Are you sure you want to do this again?" You guys know it doesn't work.
I was fine doing it. It's just hilarious that he wouldn't actually go on any other channel. He's like, oh, God.
I'll go on any channel, bitch.
Oh, you didn't say that. You didn't say that. That's hilarious.
This channel is way bigger than tacos. I'm not gonna. It's not a good business idea.
Oh, so you wouldn't go on another channel? Okay,
I would.
All right.
I would.
Oh, you would? Why didn't you?
I wanted this wreckage to be the most exposure.
Oh yeah, that's worked out real well for you.
It did. It actually did.
Sure.
It sure did.
Telling yourself that, mate.
It sure did.
All right, two more, and we're over to the panel. VGK says evolution says everything came from a single cell organism. Why did that single cell evolve? Did it just in 1 billion years decide I am lonely? Hey, let's split, or was it due to a nature?
No. It like we think that replication occurred in sort of a protocell. Like we have more and more basal, more and more primitive. It's a bad way to describe it. More and more basal cells going back with different replication sort of mechanisms. But yeah, it didn't decide to do that. All you need for these mechanisms are a replication mechanism and a selection mechanism. And the abiogenesis that I mentioned, amyloid world, already has that. In fact, in RNA world, it already has replication and selection. So no, it was before, it was replicating before it was a single cell organism.
Is RNA world the world you imagined in your head, or what's that?
It's an entire branch of abiogenesis that posits that RNA could replicate under certain chemical conditions, and it, with a selection mechanism, i.e. the ones that survive, it could be the origin of life. But I won't pretend that that's evolution. That's off topic. It's abiogenesis.
All right. And as a follow-up to this prior question from Hall Long Nate, he says, Mark, we've seen in the last 1,000 years of taxonomy, that word.
Taxonomy.
That has proven microevolution in mammals, and he follows up again based on what you were saying, Mark.
You're talking about wild right. Yeah, so microevolution, like for instance, we've seen in mammals, for instance, we've seen branching off of squirrels. We've seen the rabbit example that I gave from the start, like we've seen it branch off. Like,
you know, in wild animals, we've seen it as well. When we isolate a population, they branch off and have differences in them. I don't think anyone's arguing that microevolution happens. Like, nobody argues that.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it is time. I will get back to reading the 10s throughout the evening. I do apologize for time purposes. Obviously, we've been going at this for 45 minutes. All right, let's get our panel up here.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. Mark did make his exit, although I will say he did say from the get-go that he didn't think he was going to stay for open panel, so that is fair. Everyone knows my rules. Everyone's been here before. I've already had an evening of pure child immaturity, stupidity. Jim Bob went full Jim Bob tonight. This is the time you go full Jim
welcome.
Bob. Jim
You're
Bob.
welcome.
This is the time.
You're welcome.
Fucking killing me, Jim Bob.
Oh, stop! It's entertainment. Why are you quenching
Jim Bob,
entertainment?
you want to fight? You want to fight?
I'll fight a girl. I'll fight a cat. I'll fight a dog. I don't care.
I'll see you in Nashville, babe.
I'll
see your fucking ass in Nashville.
I will choke out a platypus.
All right, gentlemen, have your fun. Corinth, you were first in line backstage. Congratulations. Go.
Jim Bob. Jim Bob. I have an important question for you. What's the mechanism that God used to turn dirt into people in Genesis?
No idea. Mechanism would presuppose creation was there. Like, I don't know what that would be.
So do you not also share that presupposition that we were created by God?
Yeah.
From the dust? So what was the mechanism that he used?
That's not a scientific claim, though.
Do you think that didn't happen? Do you think this wasn't the origin of humanity?
What was?
Creation from God as he turned the dust into us.
Yeah,
golem spell.
Yeah, God used his supernatural power to create all.
But what was the mechanism? You're just describing.
His will.
What's the mechanism, though? You're just describing the method.
A mechanism would assume materialism. I reject materialism.
That doesn't assume materialism. What are you talking about?
What's a mechanism, then?
A mechanism is the process
define
which thing happens. I just defined it for you. I don't know why you said define it in the middle of me defining it. What?
Prince, hold on.
So he said it and it happened the same way.
Jim Bob, I think you're the one who
but what was the
slow
method?
down.
What
Let Corinth
caused that to happen?
It was actually Jesus Christ.
How did that change?
Hold on, let me answer.
One at a time.
Is already spurging. So, mechanism. The term process. Is it not the case that when you ask the word process, the thing you're referring to is something that is in nature?
No.
Yeah, you are. What else are you referring to?
No, I'm not a materialist.
What are you referring to when you say process, then?
The method of things happening. The process that thing happens. I don't know why.
That's just reasserting the word that you're using. I'm asking you what you mean by
the method from getting from A to B. So we're turning dust to humans. What's the shit that goes on in the middle that gets you from dust to humans?
I couldn't use a disanalogous materialistic schema to explain that. I don't know.
Okay, don't give the disanalogous material schema. Give God's method.
I'm not asking under materialism.
I just told you.
So you don't have access to the method. Cool.
I can't conceive of the term method in regards to God's creation. I can't do it.
I just call it a golem spell, but you're not even there yet.
You can take that as a win, but it's not a win because.
Oh, thank you for telling me that was a win.
It doesn't
it
just doesn't impact the coherency of my worldview.
I don't really have
I
one.
haven't seen Bones on since you were last on, Jim Bob. I think he has a crush on you.
Bones.
There you go.
Yeah, so Corinth, I don't know.
Don't worry. I'm not actually into men. This is just really fun for me, though.
Yeah, Corinth. The answer is I don't know. I don't know. Actually, Corinth, it's even worse than I don't know. I couldn't imagine the type of language to even use to describe such a thing.
Okay. So, why do you want that for the liver in this case?
What for the liver? There's
keep asking about the mechanism for how the liver happened. Mark Reid gave you the stuff description of it, and you keep.
Hold on. Would you first admit that they're two different categories?
No, because I'm not a materialist. I think this is the process of one thing happening.
Bro,
I'm not sure where the different categories happening there.
Bro, hold on a second. The creation of all material versus what happens. Dude, let me fucking answer your question.
Someone
pay to kick this guy. Someone pay to kick this guy. He's insufferable every time.
I'm clarifying. That's not what I was asking.
We can kick him.
Corinth, I'm asking you a simple question. From my view, is there a categorical difference between God's creation and what then happens once creation is in order? Are those two different categories?
Maybe, but that wasn't the categories being talked about in this question. So again, the category that was being talked about in the question is how this thing happened. I'm asking you.
Oh my gosh, dude. Happen is in time, space, matter, right?
If you want to say that, then God can't make anything happen as he's outside of time space. So that's a
category.
In your view.
Category error. Okay, it's just like he doesn't even try. He doesn't even try to understand.
Like I'm just saying, the standard you're putting forward here is a contradiction in your view. I don't think you affirm this, Jim Bob. I'm just helping you out, buddy.
Corinth, listen.
Jim Bob.
So you're trying to use the analogy of God's creation and the ambiguity and mystery to God's creation, and you're trying to transpose it onto the mystery of a liver being produced by natural selection, right?
Oh, it's not an analogy. I'm just asking you to hold the same standard that you're holding for this other.
It's a category error.
That's not showing any category error.
Yes, it is.
In fact, I think you're just presupposing categories. I don't grant you categories, Jim Bob.
Cool. Then you can't talk. You can't cross-examine me.
No, I grant myself categories. I don't grant you categories.
All right.
Goodbye, Corinth.
And then I'm going to use this moment to let everyone know that I'm officially moving us over to the Gauntlet. So you can either catch the raid or the link is in the chat. Move over to the Gauntlet. That's where everything's moving to. Tomato side is shutting down now. Thank you.